Hail, 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 everybody. Welcome to a special edition of Apex After Dark. Hello, hello, everybody. And we have Shadowhawk coming into the panel. Hail, Shadowhawk. Let's say hail,
Hail.
hail, hail, hail.
Good to
Also,
see
my
you,
co host,
Dan.
Devil Flyer Max, and our special guest, Mr. Dan Lawlis. Hail, cheer, hail, handshake, handshake.
Hail, hail
Let's
to
say
you.
hello.
Shadowhawk is my co-host over on my channel.
Yes, yes. Let's say hello to the mighty chat. Hello, Michael Taylor. Thanks for coming in. Nova Blast.
Hey,
Ooh, I've
Nova
never seen
Blast.
Nova
Nice.
Blast before. It sounds cool.
Yeah,
Hail, hail.
hit that like, hit the subscribe button.
Subscribe,
There
ring
you
bell for
go.
notifications. Yes, we've been talking a little bit with Dan
Michael
Lawless
Taylor,
backstage,
hello.
but we're going to save the rest of it for the show here. Dan Lawless, I've seen your beautiful artwork on Instagram, on Twitter, on
Mhm.
YouTube. You've been a guest of on many channels, including Aaron Lopresti, the Comics Gate, Comic Artist Pro Secrets, Ethan Van Scaver, Shanthan Jetty, which I've met you there before. I'm a mod on Shanthan Jetty's channel, and we got to meet with Dan. Dan seems like a really cool guy. Seems like I've known Dan, but I don't really know him. But yeah, he seems like an old friend of mine. He has that a good posture about him, a good attitude, a really
Really?
good guy. Yeah, I sense that in you, Dan. Yes, I do. So anyway, man, let's get to the brass tacks. How did you get started in art, and what interests you, and how did you get started in this whole comic business?
I can't remember, like, as a kid when I first saw comics, but I knew I loved comics at a pretty early age. I loved them, and I couldn't. I mean, the only comics we had when I was a kid was like Archie or Hot Stuff. I remember Hot Stuff for some reason. Nobody
Oh
knows
yeah,
that one.
yeah.
Harvey Comics.
Casper
Well,
and that sort of stuff. I love comics, any comics from the beginning. But when I saw superhero comics, man, that was it for me. It's like, and I my parents didn't buy it for me. I bought it for myself, with my paper out money and stuff. So
Oh
the
yeah.
funny thing is, though, I really was interested in the art from the beginning. Like I approached it as like I remember had a stack about 8 or 10 comics, and I referred to them as my art lessons. That's how much I was interested in drawing it and being in the art of it. So I've been at this for a long time. Just really just took to it like the fish to water and
You
stuff.
started drawing at an early age then.
Very much so, yeah. Now
Mm.
my mom was an artist, so I think there was influence there.
Sure.
Although she wasn't professional or anything like that because I'm one of 8 kids. So by the time I came around, I was number 7. I think they
Wow.
just like, here's some
Okay.
paper and a pencil to shut up.
Are there any other in your family that draw that are
No, no,
artistically
it
inclined?
was not really, except for my brother who he was we were sat at the step there drawing. I was drawing the monsters, creatures, aliens, and all that stuff, and he's drawing cars. So he became an
Yeah.
auto designer,
Okay. Wow.
so
Yeah.
That's cool.
oh, wow.
so no one said stop. It just kind of kept doing it. Yeah.
That's
Now you
great.
have a big Frank Frazetta influence. I noticed that in some of your artwork. You even got
Yeah.
the angry Frazetta face going on with a lot of your warrior
Yeah.
guys.
Well,
Well, you've
I
worked on some Frazetta covers, haven't you, for certain projects, right?
yeah. I just got I did a Death Dealer for the Overstreet price guide, and
Oh, that's
that
cool.
that
Oh,
one
yeah,
turned
dude.
out pretty
That's got
darn
to
well.
be
The
wonderful
funny
to
thing
get on a publication like the Overstreet Price Guide
Yeah.
that's been the touchstone for so many collectors. Uh, that's ran over 50 years already.
I know it's an honor to do that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, I actually was working on that cover I just love it. So I love Frazetta stuff. So I was doing that for about a year, working on that cover, and just off and on, kind of little bits. And then it was like for some reason I said I'm just gonna finish it. I'm tired of just sitting around. I'm just gonna do it. I spent 2 weeks, just did it. The day I finished it, uh, Jeff Vaughn emailed me and said, "Hey Dan, I'm looking for a cover. Could you do like a Conan cover or something like that?" And I go, "Well, I don't have a Conan cover, but I got a Death Dealer cover." He goes, "Oh, that'd be perfect." So I mean, we're talking the day I finished it.
Wow.
He contacted me, and I was like, and so I like, here it is. He's like, "Can you do one?" Like, here, it's right here. I could just send it right away.
The fast turnaround, they'll be
know.
hitting you up
It is.
again next year.
I know. Wow, that was easy.
That's That's awesome.
Now I
So
remember a cover you did on Star Lord.
yeah, I did the three parts series of Star Lord. I painted three covers, and I did all the interiors on those three books too, written by
Were you a
Tim.
Marvel or a DC guy,
I
or
started at
both?
Marvel, and then I think I did only one issue at DC. It was Legion Legion something. I forget what it's called.
Uh,
Legion of
well, I mean, as a
Superheroes.
kid,
Oh,
were you a reader
Oh,
of?
oh, I was a Marvel guy for sure. Yeah,
You're a Marvel
yeah.
guy. What
yeah.
what drew you to Marvel over DC? You think?
I think I think it's art. I think I like the style of the art. It was of the Buscema. I'm a big fan of Buscema and Gil Kane and
I could
Gene
tell.
Colan and John Romita Jr. I mean John Romita and John Romita Jr. actually,
I,
but John
I, I
Romita.
say that Gil Kane was probably the seminal cover. He's certainly
Yep.
Oh
probably
yeah.
the most prolific in the Bronze Age in
Yeah.
the 70s.
I like their art, and I also liked the characters themselves. I thought I honestly I kind of thought Superman was a bit dorky, and
Hmm.
I don't know. It seemed like there was the cool characters were Marvel characters, Hulk
Do
and
you
Thor. And,
adopt certain things from certain artists? Like, oh, I like how he does his elbows or knees or
yeah, yeah,
hands.
it
Or
all goes in
yeah,
the mixer. It's a big blender.
yeah.
You pull from everything, and you might study a little artist for a while, and then you start looking a little bit like him because you're absorbing it. It's like
Hmm.
osmosis, you just kind of it pulls in. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, I still study a
Do,
lot
do
of.
you think that comics should go into a more artistic way? Like I know uh, Bill Sienkiewicz in the early 80s, mid 80s was doing, pushing the boundaries as far
Electro
as
Assassin and
the
stuff. Yeah,
aesthetic of sequential art, as well as Frank Miller and Daredevil and some other things. You had more of a noir type Jim Steranko
yeah,
feel
yeah.
to it.
Well, here's the thing: is that like I got my first job was '87, but
Wow.
so I was pretty excited about comics because the year before that you had the Dark Knight coming out, you had Watchmen, and
Hmm.
even in a couple years before you had Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein. I mean,
Hmm.
Yeah.
Dave Stevens' Rocketeer, all that stuff was coming out at the time when I was intern. I thought, wow, this is gonna be great.
Well, you had Pacific Comics, like you said, with Frankenstein. You had Eclipse Comics. You had public
First
domain
comics,
characters like Airboy
First
coming out
comics.
in
Yeah.
Eclipse, and the '80s really started off slow, but then there was a boom.
yeah, very
Yeah,
much
yeah,
so. Yeah.
and I think Ninja Turtles had a lot to do with that. If you had to
Yeah.
point to
Yeah,
one
they made independence huge. Like all of a
and
sudden
black
there was
and white
people
and
black and white.
independence, yeah, exploded like never before.
Yeah,
I
people
mean,
were
you
making
had a
money.
few like Bill Black that was doing Paragon Press, and they all the way back to the early 70s where he worked with Steranko, and a few creators here
Dave
and there
Sim,
in independent
Cerberus,
comics. But
Dave
Oh
Sim
yeah.
Cerberus
Cerberus.
was a big, yeah, and
300 issues. Oh.
Elfquest
Oh.
was another
Yep.
one. Yeah, it
Yeah.
just
Do you
kind
guys
of
remember? Do you guys
broke
remember
out.
Mike Mignola's first thing on Quorum at First Comics? That was the first time I
No.
saw his work.
Really?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I mentioned it. Almost everybody I mentioned to does not know about his
I
run
didn't know
on
that.
and look it up because it's some of my favorite art. I think he looks it down on it, but I think it's great. I think he hit the ground running. He's really I think he's a great designer.
Don't you
He's a
think
great.
that artists kind of go through phases? I mean, like if you look at John Romita Jr. today and you look at him when he first started out, of course, there's a progression, right? And
Absolutely.
then
Yeah.
it depends on if you ink yourself. Like Gil Kane, I prefer his stuff when he didn't ink himself. Of course, he's kind of like Alex Toth. He used a flare pen, which was unheard of, really.
Yeah, yeah. The interesting thing is my probably biggest exposure was Gil Kane on Starhawks in the newspapers,
Hmm.
and I
Oh
think
yeah.
that especially with you just mentioned that his linear style he was using, uh, it looks great when it's doubled down farther, just reduced
Oh
down,
yeah.
smaller. And so
Yeah.
my exposure to him was this is great line work, and it really probably wasn't,
Well,
but
the thing about it is you don't have a lot of differentiation in line weight
yeah,
with that.
yes,
And I
yes.
think that's why a lot of people reject that.
Right, they did. Yeah, yeah. But I think though, like I said, when it took that double reduction and the
Mhm.
lines got thin, it looked nice. And
Yeah.
because I remember then
Yeah.
seeing it on a comic, same thing with Ditko. The first time I saw Ditko's stuff, his Spider-Man stuff, was in a little paperback, which I still have around here somewhere, and they were reduced quite pretty far down. And I thought, wow, this is really good art. And then I saw it, regular comic book size. I thought, this is good.
Right.
But
And on my own comic, my artist, my neighbor, my friend, since 1982. Actually, the way we met was they were doing homemade comics and they were at the public library. And my mother saw the exhibition, the small little cubicle that had their homemade comics in there about magazine size. And he drew it to the exact same size as a regular comic book so that we would not have any problems with printing, which we didn't. But then when she gave me this proof of it blown up, I said, "This is the scale that I envisioned in my head for this artwork." So scale really does play a thing in art, doesn't it?
absolutely, yeah.
Especially reproduced art.
Yeah, you look at that, that like the Prince Valiant stuff.
Mhm.
Who's I forgot the guy's name. I'm gonna draw on a blank, but he would work double size, like I mean, huge on huge boards, and that thing. So when it got reduced, I mean, it looks really nice and fine.
Didn't you, now what kind of paint? You're more painterly, right?
Yeah, but well,
Didn't you do a portfolio in the 80s?
no, but like I
With
said,
it?
I
Did you
did,
have you done any
I did Star
portfolio?
Lord. And I said I did 3 part Star Lord, and that was
Okay.
fully painted. But I call it painting, but I use pencils, color
Okay.
pencils.
Okay.
And all that stuff. Any of those cards you see with the Hulk versus Wolverine, those kind of things. That was kind of people seem to remember those the
Can I
most.
ask you what brand of? I mean, it's probably a
Prismacolor
soft.
pencils, but the interesting thing is that it's the my technique that I found. And this is through my brother being an auto designer. They use something called a frosted mylar, and it's
Ooh.
really transparent. And so I could put this frosted mylar over a drawing and then just
Mhm.
color it, and then eventually take the piece of paper, drawing underneath and finish it. But it looks like paint.
And
It
it gives
has
it a
that.
softer effect.
Well, it looks like, I mean, but it's kind of like it needs a double reduction in size because when you try to reproduce color pencil, it doesn't look so hot. So
Right.
I wasn't really wild about the reproductions of the Star Lord art. The original art looks much better than for some reason color pencil doesn't look so good reproduced, except for the covers. The covers are huge, so when those got reduced down, that's good enough of a reduction to remove a lot of the, I don't know, it picks up textures and weird things.
I've got some comic book. I mean, I can't even get my hands in here how big it is from the golden age. Artwork. They worked on a very huge scale
Yes.
compared
Oh
to
yes.
Marvel. On
Yeah.
one show, I did a comparison of like a Blackthorn page, which was quite big, but not near as big as the golden age, and the little bitty Marvel pages. Which I know that's
Mhm.
kind of vacillated through the years, but they used to work on a big scale. And then, like Todd McFarlane, when he was doing Spider-Man and Spawn, he went big because he wanted to put in more detail, more
Yeah.
webbing, more spiders, things like that. I think
It
he
looks
did the
nicer
same
when
thing
it's,
when he did Spawn.
yeah, when it takes a reduction, it looks nicer, it looks sharper, looks
Hmm.
more professional,
Sharpens it
and
up.
that's a
Hmm.
little easier to get those details, and that's for sure.
Yeah.
I never, I think it'd be an interesting experiment to draw that large on a comic book. I mean,
Yeah.
the kind of
Oh
the
yeah. I
weird
mean,
thing is
they're huge. I wish I had
yeah,
the page here. Like you
Oh,
couldn't
it's
hardly see it. I'd have to get way back here.
yeah. The weird thing is when you're drawing and you're kind of looking into something, you can you have to be careful because when you're drawing it large and then you reduce it down, something happens with the perspective. So all of a sudden things get too forced with perspective, which it maybe isn't a
Mhm.
problem in comics as much, but it's
If you don't
there's
size
weird
it
things
right, you
happen.
have to stretch
Yeah.
the image to
Yeah.
to
So
fit it in.
what you think has a big impact at that size you're looking at right there on your piece of paper. Then when
Mhm.
you reduce it down, like, oh, that's not as great of an impact. So some of the there's a disconnect between fan and actual product, art and actual products. You got to be careful. I think if you work really large, that you
Yeah.
know what you're doing. Uh, but
And
yeah,
often it's dangerous to do what, although everything was tight on this, blowing it up to magazine size, actually going upscale, right?
yeah,
You
that's,
can,
that's usually a no-no because it just looks the line
it's usually
reduction.
a no-no, but in
Line
my case, I think it
It's
worked.
squiggly lines and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you get the lines don't look as crisp. Everything when you reduce down, things get crisp, and that's why they do it. But
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's true.
Now,
Wow.
is there a company that you really liked working for? Because I know you did
Dark
some stuff
Horse.
for Dark Horse.
Oh,
Yeah.
Dark
cool.
Horse is the only company that really was. I don't know. Maybe it was kind of a combination of hitting my stride, but also they just Marvel's just a big machine, and
What do you
it's
think
just
they're
like,
going through now, Dan? I mean, they lost the property to Predator and Aliens and stuff like that
Yeah.
yeah,
that they had for decades.
yeah, because they're not making any money from. That's probably
Not,
what's going on.
they don't know how to
They're-
write, in my
they're-
opinion.
Well, Marvel
yeah,
seems to
Some of
be
them.
exploiting it
Yeah.
now that they picked up the property.
yeah.
I don't know if they're
Honestly, I
making
don't
any
really
money.
follow it. Yeah, to tell you the truth, it's like
Yeah,
I'm kind of, but
right.
I don't know about that.
yeah, they kind of
But
lost
better,
me,
better
and
off not to. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know. You just don't even feel safe reading a comic today. It's just like you're going to get preached to in some nonsense, you know.
Well, things have
exactly.
changed since you and I were kids, Dan. I mean, there's no spinner rack. You can't walk into a
Oh,
pharmacy or grocery and encounter something incredible
I
that
want
you
to
weren't
bring it back.
expecting.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
It's no
I
longer
honestly,
there.
I think that was the downfall of comics when they got rid
It
of the
was
spinner
the
racks
direct
because
you're
market of the
right.
80s.
it's point of sale. You know, if you don't have the point of sale, you just
It
people
was nice to
see.
have the prestige
Yeah,
format, and like you said, the reprints of like Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein in print
Oh
with
man.
Yeah.
in Pacific Comics and stuff, and uh, uh, it was nice to have all that for the very first time. And you would think, I guess the thinking was it'll drive them to the store, and it was Capital Comics, and then Diamond came in and bought them after. But it started out Capital Comics on the direct stuff, like Dazzler #1 was Marvel's first direct. In fact, that's when I had a comic book shop. I was 17 years old in high school and had it for, about a year. And it wasn't that I bailed out on it, but that my partner bailed out on it. So, uh, but, I got to see the birth of that direct market that ultimately would destroy comics in a way.
yeah. I think I actually agree with you. I think that's what happened is because
Yeah.
it used to be the kid at the grocery store and the kids like oh look, I want to buy this comic, and mom would just buy them the comic just to shut them up kind of.
Do you have a comic book collection still, Dan?
Yeah.
You
Oh,
do.
But
excellent.
again, I it's so much, like I said, I was so focused on art, and then because when I collected, I would go to the store. I was as a young man, I would I picked up the comic books that had the best art, and I didn't really care much about the story as much, but I still enjoyed the stories. But I would, that's why I would get Judge Dredd and things like that. That if it looked cool, if Brian Boland was drawn at something, that's like I had to have it. So I collected the
Camelot
best art
3000.
out there. Pardon me?
Camelot 3000 introduced
Yes.
him to the
Yeah.
genre.
That was very cool.
And yet he was long, when you look back into it, in the UK, big, like Alan Davis and others, Gibbons that did Watchmen. I mean, I'd never heard of these guys really, but then
Yes.
the prestige format like Watchmen and things like that brought them to the forefront, especially the UK crowd, it seems like.
Yep. Yep. Gibbons did some Judge Dredd too. I think didn't he? I mean, I think they all
Yeah.
kind of.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
There was it
Yeah.
Cam Kennedy. There was another. Was he another Dredd
Yeah.
guy?
Yeah.
And so they brought some. And then there was of course the Epic Illustrator, which brought in some different sort of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mobius, I got exposed to
Oh,
Mobius
yeah.
when I was in
Oh,
art
that's
school.
where I found him. Yeah.
Love
And then
Mobius.
John Byrne's last Galactus story that was an epic got me reading that on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I also remember Miracle Man with Alan Moore and Gary Leach. I think Gary Leach did some 2000 AD, another British artist. And yeah. Have you ever, has 2000 AD ever contacted you about doing a Judge Dredd art? Any
No.
stories like that? No. I think you'd
No.
make a good fit for it if you did. That's having
Are they still
having-
publishing it? Are they?
Yeah, I think they are. Off and on, I think. But not as much as they did in the 80s, but they
Michael
Yeah.
they put
Taylor
out-
in the chat says, my childhood spinner rack was crooked. It stood crooked. Yeah, some of them
Right.
didn't quite pivot around too good, did they? They were
Man.
noisy. They needed
I
an
want a
old
spinner
job.
rack. I
Yeah.
sure want one.
I
Dan,
remember
do you have a
this-
spinner rack?
I remember the drugstore guy saying,
I
because
think
I'd be
it's
standing there,
different.
I would go through all the comics, and I picked like the best. I'm like, again, I'm looking at art, and he's like, just pick one and go. I'm like you don't understand. I'm an artist.
I have them all.
Wow. Yeah.
25 cents each. Hey, here's
Yeah.
$3. I want them
Yeah.
all.
George
But think about
Perez-
this though. I had mentioned that stack of 8 comics. One of those comics was Thor versus Silver Surfer. That and I thought that
Oh,
like
number
opened my world.
4, Silver
Yeah,
Surfer.
so
Oh my
so that's I
God.
mean I saw that right
Yeah.
away as a masterwork in comic book art, I loved it. It was like this is great stuff. And it was
And
about
low
that time too.
distribution on that issue. For
Lowest,
some reason, there's low distribution on that
yeah,
issue,
I
so
don't
I
you were
think it
remember.
lucky
Yeah,
to
was.
find a copy.
It's like 2 grand, isn't it? Isn't it? Or more?
Well,
yeah,
depending on the condition, yeah,
yeah.
it's
My
about
my
three
copy
things.
is. I'm sure my
Yeah,
copy's not.
yeah,
You have 9
yeah,
copies
yours
of that?
No, no, no. I'm sure my copy is
Oh,
not in
okay.
good shape.
it's
But
frayed, yeah,
yeah,
because you read it again and again, didn't
I
you?
read it. I
So
studied
You're
yard. I'm
using
like,
even the
you,
reprints are so
you're
good too.
using it as an artistic
yeah,
inspiration.
yeah, yeah. Well, you know
A little
what
bit
really
different.
was the big deal for me. I was in high school. I forget which year, and this kid came up to me and said, he saw me drawing comics on all my folders and stuff. He said, "I got a comic book thing, a book for you. It's how to draw comics." And I would always heard whenever I saw a how to draw comics book, I thought that's not comics. That's just whatever, something silly or whatever, ridiculous. In
Right,
my mind, I'm thinking,
right.
fine, I'll look at it, but I want how to draw Marvel. He goes, that's what this is. I'm like, all right, sure. So next day he comes in with how to draw comics the Marvel way, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the book I wished it had existed, and it exists. You know what I mean? So I just went nuts. That was it for me. And then of course Stanley had his little blurbs throughout the whole thing about true believer and only a true artist. And I'm like, yes, that's me. I'm.
Have you read Scott McCloud's books on the subject?
I don't think so. No, no.
He was
That's a pretty
the
good.
creator of Zot for Eclipse Comics. I think it was Eclipse Comics.
I think it may have been first.
Yeah, he's done a lot about
Yeah.
the sequential artwork and stuff.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the
Uh,
biggest lesson in storytelling I learned was from Rich Buckler, and he had something, some back of some comic book, and
oh,
how
I
love
to
had
Rich.
that.
just
I've
it was
got
a simple thing, a simple rule, and I follow it to this day. The 180-degree rule, that you use it in film and stuff, where you don't cross the action axis. It's like the theater, like I always say it. It's like think of it as you're being a person in a theater and actors on the stage. You can move your camera anywhere you want in the audience, up, down, or whatever. Just go behind the stage, because all of a sudden everyone appears to have switched places, and that
Oh
confuses
yeah.
the reader. So I followed that rule really. I had that in the beginning of my career before I even started doing a job. So I always had clear storytelling because of that little simple rule. If you follow that rule,
Well,
it
one of
really.
the most interesting stories that I ever read was in one of those early '80s prestige format, where it was a Bill Sienkiewicz's where he had that Neil Adams look still early
Yep.
in
Moon
his
Knight.
career.
Moon Knight.
Yeah,
Yep.
Moon Knight. Yeah,
Moon
that's
Knight,
great.
right? And
Yeah.
they told the story from Moon Knight's perspective, and then they told it from the Hulk's perspective, and
I
they
think I
both
might
wound
remember
up
that
at the
one.
climactic point of where they're meeting at the end of the story. At the both of what led up to the Hulk meeting Moon Knight and what led up to Moon Knight meeting Hulk. All
Agent
this,
Pusher.
Yeah.
in two
Back when they wrote
stories
actual stories. Yeah.
coming into one. Yeah. So that's almost like switching behind the stage and looking out in a way,
Yes. Yeah.
storytelling wise.
Yes. It's absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm still learning about storytelling. Like I can tell a story, but creating a story is pretty tough. So an
Yeah.
original
How
story
do you
anyways.
prefer to work? Do you like thumbnail nails, storyboards? Do you like a script? Or I
Um,
mean, are you doing
I
single
think for
pieces
me,
like
I prefer more information the better, because then
Mhm.
I take it in and I really absorb it. Like so just give so the one time I had gotten sort of thumbnails was Keith Giffen on the Agents of Law at Dark Horse. So he had gave me the page, those sketches on it, the page breakdowns, and I was like, this is great. But then I felt it started to get restrictive, because he was doing a 6-panel grid on everything. I was like,
Oh wow.
I want to do something. I want to do some splashes. I want to do something. So I started last issue. So I started breaking that up a little bit. But
have you kind of read about Wally Wood and what he said about how to do
The tw-
sequentials and things
the
like that?
22 panels that never fails or whatever that's
Yeah,
called.
exactly.
Yeah.
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 Hmm.
no, I don't. I'm not familiar with that. I'm familiar with Wally
No,
Wood,
it's
but
really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good shot. It shows you different shots. I tend to think cinematically Do you find that other media have influenced you, Dan, on how you see things? I know
Yeah, I
in
mean, I
Iron
think you should.
Shadowhawk was looking at a Bernie Wrightson where Swamp Thing and Swamp Thing #1, where he's coming up and
Mhm.
could have depicted the panel in many different ways, but he depicted it under the car where you're seeing the under part of the car, the muffler and everything, and looking out towards Swamp Thing. Very cinematic.
Yes, yeah. Anything, any ideas like that, if it works, man, go for it. That's what I think. I
Mhm.
still think though that as far as storytelling, I think Frank Miller is still, to me, is still the best storyteller as far as just being able to really put together a movie kind of feeling thing. I remember when I first, again, I'm at the comic book shop picking his things by art, and I saw this, I saw the Dark Knight, and I saw that first image with the lightning bolt and that sort of thing. And I thought,
Oh
well, this looks
yeah.
Mhm.
okay. And then I flipped it and I saw that there was, I think there was a page or something where he's standing there with like, holding the guy or something with a flag. I don't know what it was, but I was like, man, that's cool. So I
Oh,
got that, and
Superman
I
maybe with the flag or something, because he
something
was
like
in
that.
that.
Anyways, I brought that home with a little stack of comics, and I remember reading that. I'm just going to read this one first, and I read it and just blew me away. I was like, holy smokes, comics are never going to be the same. And I had this other little stack of comics, and I remember thinking like, this is they don't they just seem so like a downgrade from after reading this other one.
Yeah,
So, and
yeah.
I still feel that way. I still feel like it's one of the best comic book series ever written. I
Well,
just
I mean,
Uh,
there's been a lot talked about the deconstruction of the hero
yeah.
about that time, like Watchmen
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Batman
and that
Dark
yeah,
Knight.
the Ditko hated that. I mean, he hated the anti-hero kind of thing, and I think there's some truth to that. I do like a hero who's a hero, who
Mhm.
Yeah.
who really someone that's better than me. Why do I want to read someone who's worse than me? But
Mhm.
it's like so I like a good hero and stuff like that. But I mean, Dark Knight is kind of bad looking guy, but he's still it's a good hero in the end. All he does is good. So
And it was cool that they set it in sort of a post-apocalyptic, in the future. It could be
yeah,
kind of like a what if story. Some of the most
yeah.
intriguing stories I thought were in What If, and when it first came out, I hated it. I mean, just looking at it, What If number one, what I thought it was a silly idea because I guarded the Marvel universe. I
Yeah,
took it
yeah. That's why I
seriously.
didn't like him either. I
I didn't
didn't.
like Howard the Duck
Yeah,
in the Marvel universe.
yeah,
It
yeah.
didn't make or Doctor Who or any of or Rom or Micronauts that were toys. I just hated it, even though some of that stuff was real intriguing, and I bought it.
Yeah. I bought it too.
Yeah.
I took the. I think I don't know if they realize that with kids they take it seriously.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
you're looking for inspiration. The first Avengers I bought with very early on George Perez artwork just blew my
Yeah.
mind with the concepts and stuff,
Yeah.
alternative worlds and
Do
stuff.
you guys remember the one that was a Thing annual where Thing fought this guy called the Champion came along and he had to
Yes.
Yeah,
fight
Yeah.
all
I
those
have that
Ron
one.
things.
Yeah.
Wilson did the artwork to that.
Ron
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wilson.
Now
Yeah.
there's that's a good example of a young person of getting a real good lesson in that because I remember Thing at the end is beaten to near to death
Yeah.
and he just doesn't quit. He says, "You can destroy my body. I just won't quit." And I remember thinking that, yeah, I love that philosophy of just never say die kind of thing. So that went into me, and there's things like that I noticed in comics from time to
I
time.
wonder if Muhammad Ali's matches really, I mean, especially there toward the end, because he had a broke jaw just like the Thing in there. And
Yeah.
as I remember, the canopy, he was knocked through the canopy even.
Yeah.
And a lot of the heroes were disqualified. Years later, Cartoon Network actually did a spoof on that very annual they were talking about. That's Marvel 2-in-1 #7, as a matter
Yeah.
of fact.
Yeah, it's got a
Yeah.
great cover too with the Sasquatch in the background. Man, is that
Uh-huh.
cool?
That's
Yeah.
cool.
But
I
I
tell.
mean, you see Ben Grimm like that, don't you? Like he could
Absolutely,
be
yeah.
of that era, and
And now he's going to be a
I'm
woman or something.
Oh.
oh god,
Oh no. I like the Superman versus Muhammad Ali cover with Neil Adams. I mean,
Yeah, that was
he had
I thought that
celebrities in
was
the
great,
background.
but to me, again, I wasn't a big Superman fan, and And
Right.
I didn't like the real world coming into the comic world, and so I
Yeah.
didn't buy that. I
Well,
saw it, I thought, man, this is great art, but I just like, I didn't like the idea of it.
Did you like the treasuries though when they came out in big format?
I like the big format comics, yeah, but
Hmm.
yeah.
They were
Treasury
always a
editions.
bonus. You go in and go, oh, they've got a new treasury out.
Yeah, dollar
Probably the
Yeah.
fifty.
first one I ever saw was a Fantastic Four, and I was like, whoa, this is
yeah.
Oh
different.
What
yeah.
about the Batman Hulk
Oh yeah,
with drawn by
Yeah.
Jose Luis Garcia Lopez? That was
Oh,
one of
that's
the
great.
that guy. That was another influence on me, even though you wouldn't know it by looking at.
this
Yeah,
one.
Oh,
that I have that.
let's see that. Let's see it. Whoa, whoa, go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just happened to have it handy.
There you
it's so
go. Love it.
You know what's
Yeah.
cool too is in the back where they have they showed the rejected covers, and I'm
I
sure
like
glad they
those.
didn't. And then you can see the comments and stuff that the editor
Mhm.
made about the
Yeah.
covers that were rejected.
Yeah, the
Really
behind
fast
the
in the back of
scenes
that,
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a great thing. But now Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, he was such a draftsman, and
And
one of the things I learned from him was perspective. I mean, he could really draw. In fact, there's a story I remember that Carl Potts was telling me of John Buscema complaining about the art, and he was in the Marvel Studios one day, and he's just like, and he was just looking through some comics, and he's just like, look at this stuff. These people can't draw, and he said he got to Jose Luis Garcia Lopez's story. He's like, pages start going slower, He's just like, this is really good.
I think he's still working for
Yes.
DC. He does a lot of product packaging. I see a lot of his
Yeah.
artwork on cups, all kind pencils, you name it.
Yeah, he was
He's been
just,
doing that since the late 70s, all his career. He's
yeah,
always been their go-to guy for a lot of their packaging stuff.
yeah. He can
He's
just
been
draw. Boy, can he draw.
Oh boy, yeah. I
Man.
mean, I think he did some of the most iconic covers during that time for
Yeah,
DC. Like
Oh yeah.
some of his stuff from DC Comics Presents, his covers like Dead Man and Superman, and uh,
Oh man.
I think just they're just
yeah,
iconic. They stick out in your mind for that month in comics, and then they hold up
yeah.
over time.
Now you mentioned DC Comics. I did like I followed artists. So when Gene Colan went, wherever he went, I kind of followed there. So
Hmm.
I liked when he did some Batman. I liked
Oh
Night
yeah.
Force that he did for DC. So whatever he was doing, he
Hmm.
was there's a lot of So that's when I got to DC. I mean, but it wasn't huge in that
I
realm. But
think the same thing happened to me with like George Perez. He stopped doing what he was
Yeah.
doing over at Marvel and started doing New Teen Titans, and
yeah,
and then
I
in
really
the
I
in the little digest like this here introduced me to a lot of
Oh, let's see that
a,
thing.
a lot of the lore of
Give me a
that
moment.
stuff I would never read, but little 100-page digest.
Hold it up there again, Rex.
Hey,
Hold it
those
up.
look
yeah
pretty
Carmen
nice.
Hold it
Infantino.
up there. Yeah, those things. Those are awesome.
Yeah, I think it was Carmen Infantino that I saw he did some great Flash work,
Oh,
and
he
I
did.
bought that.
Absolutely.
Those are great little books.
Getting back to Gene Colan, I loved him on Daredevil. That
Oh
was my go-to
yeah,
for
I have a
that.
lot of Daredevil and Tomb of Dracula.
Oh my
Those are
Tomb
my
of
God.
Dracula, yep.
Oh
But
yeah,
you
Dracula.
mentioned one Night Force. I think that could be made into a movie,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
and I wish they would pick it up again. And
Yeah.
but I mean,
Another
Gene
guy I followed
Colan,
big time at DC was Don Newton on Batman. I thought he
Oh
did
yeah.
a great
Don
Batman
Newton, yeah.
run.
Mhm.
Agreed.
Very solid artist, really good stuff.
Well, Batman's had just about everybody,
Yeah,
So yeah.
over the decades. Jim Aparo
Anybody that was anybody has been.
Bob
had
Kane,
done
Neil
Batman at
Adams,
some point. Yeah, I
Carmen
know.
Infantino.
R.T. Bear said I always wanted to do Batman, but they kept putting me on Superman. I never got to do Batman.
Oh man, poor
I
Art.
see the T-Bear Batman. It'd be kind of cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd
right.
love to see it. Yeah.
I'd like to
Wow.
see it today.
Is
Well,
there anything that you'd like to do, Dan, that you hadn't gotten to do?
I would love to do Conan.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned if you caught that, but before we went on, I said I did one Savage Sword Conan cover.
Mhm.
That was, and
Okay.
I was so excited about that. That was
And that was toward the end of the run.
yeah. When they were entering their black and whites, large, and they went ahead with another Conan
Oh,
regular size
oh,
comic.
it's like the Savage Sword.
Yeah, it was a Savage Sword of Conan cover. Yeah.
Something. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Savage
Because
Sword
they
of
picked it up again
Conan.
after they discontinued the main run. I may have that.
Yeah. Well,
I'll
actually, I
have
could
to
probably
check
bring
that
it
out.
up. I mean,
You might
Yeah.
have an opportunity here, Dan, if
Yeah.
things keep going the way I've heard they're going.
well, I mean, Marvel, of course, lost Conan,
Lost
and there's a
Conan.
company now
Yeah, yeah.
in that has them in Britain. Now, here's the
Yeah,
see this.
Conan.
Here's a bit of a problem. Like,
Yeah.
I, um, I didn't like I wasn't buying comic Conan, but I saw enough of the pages of it, and they were kind of wokish, and
Yeah.
I kind of criticized it. And I have a Conan Facebook group that I run, and Jim Zub was in there, and I didn't even know he was in there. I'm ripping in this stuff, and so I don't have a really great relationship with him. So
Oh no, no.
with the new comic book in Britain, he's writing that too. So I'm like, oh, yeah, because I was thinking, oh, this British comic company's gonna, maybe I'll get some covers. And Jim Zub's the new writer, like, oh,
No, really.
I
Hey,
burned that
Jason.
bridge.
Unhinged.
I don't know
Hey,
all
guys.
the details, but apparently some buddies of ours in CG have got the right to publish Conan in Europe.
Mhm.
So
That's
Yeah,
Gregory
you can actually.
Elovitch.
I
Yeah.
think you can actually
yeah,
publish him
regular.
here if you don't use Conan's name. Like you can, I mean, I
Right.
think it's the free domain for the stories, the Howard stories, but they are in Europe, but in America, even because I think Blaze Comics or something is publishing some Conan stories,
Red
but they can't say
Nails.
Conan. Yeah, they can't say
Yeah, I
Conan on
almost
it.
Yeah, they
think they're
just don't
trying
know.
to.
Yeah.
The cover. Yeah.
I almost think they're trying to change like Peter Parker Spider-Man or Clark Kent Superman, so that they, because some of these properties eventually are going to go into public domain. I know
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Ditko family. I don't think Ditko would ever think when he was alive that he would sue, but his family's suing, I think,
Yes.
over. And then we have, the whole thing with Superman going into
Heaven.
public domain. So they,
Yeah.
well, this isn't Peter Parker Spider-Man from
Right.
Ditko. We've got Miles Morales over here.
Exactly. That I think that's what they're doing. They're saying it's for diversity, but they're just trying to keep
No.
Yeah.
the IP.
all about
I mean, I can
control.
see what Alan Moore is saying about, in the contract it said when it goes out of print, and they never had Watchmen out of print, so he never got the rights to the property back. I would be PO'd
Yeah.
about that too.
I would too. Yeah.
Yeah. But here's the thing: is lesson learned. We can see this now. This next generation of artists. This is why CG is so important. You got and I mean I got Marvel sent me a big trade paperback and had my first Cloak and Dagger stuff in there from 30 years ago. It's like
Mhm.
now if I had done my own Creator Comics back then, I could have been selling them for the past 30 years. Like I could have
yeah.
every new generation making that money for myself. So I think if you're a young artist, the lesson is don't give Marvel and DC your best ideas.
Yeah.
Right.
Just even though it's harder in the beginning to get started and get noticed, I think it's far worth it to just go that route. You'll you have creative control, you enjoy it more, it's more satisfying, and also Marvel doesn't have the and DC doesn't have the distribution. These comic books, they're selling 20,000 copies, and those copies are just going to collectors, not being read by average kids.
Right.
They're just the readership's
Right.
not there, so your exposure you think you're being exposed to a lot of people, not really. I don't
With
think you
that
are.
said, I picked this up at my local comic book shop. This was a crowdfunder,
Look
Titan
at
Mouth
this.
of Might
Oh
by
yeah, Gary Shipman.
Shipman. Yeah, and it
Yeah.
was
yeah.
actually in the the children's book. Although I think it's not really written for kids. I haven't read it yet, but now I backed his Indiegogo project 1 through 3, and
I gotta get
because on the artwork alone, I thought it was
Yeah,
quite
it's really good.
very
but it
good.
was neat to see this out in the comic book shops. I think that's what needs to happen, Dan.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I think in Europe they do it more like we're doing it now, where you
Don't get
you
stuff
have
like that
independent
anymore.
creators and
Oh,
they
look at
publish
that.
it yourself.
Swamp
Oh,
Thing.
wow.
Oh, Bernie writes
You,
some
you
greatness.
don't get
Look
stuff like that anymore. Yeah.
No.
No, you don't.
Except back issues. That's it. The back issue pile at your local comic shop. on the wall.
Yeah, if you're going to survive as a local comic book shop, you have to have a large back issue, I think,
Yes, you do.
of things. You
It's
have to have a
essential.
diversity of things, but a lot of these places are investing in Funko Pops and other
Hmm.
things that are going to sit on the shelf for a while, I think.
Role playing
And
games too, like
and
Magic the Gathering.
the profit margins are so thin. We're seeing so many of them go down.
Yep.
If the
Yeah,
shops go down, it's going to have to go to online. I don't know where else they can
yeah.
go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do think it's a good this direct to consumer, creator to consumer is a really good thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's a, I think we're gonna, it's possible. I really do believe in it. I think it's possible you're gonna see some great comics, because when people start, but it's tough to build an audience. You got to get out there and work and be online like this and that sort of stuff. So
That's
Yeah.
right.
Do
and all,
you
us,
have
all the introverts have to come.
Yeah, and
do
get
you have a
your own
YouTube?
YouTube channel. Yes,
Do
he
you have a
does.
YouTube? Okay.
He does have a YouTube. I had that in the chat. Let me go ahead and pin it again. Let me go ahead and get that for
Yeah, I
everyone.
haven't done much with it though. I'm gonna start doing more this
You
year.
know
I
what,
think.
Dan? I've been exposing your YouTube channel on my Thursday night. I had a live stream. I said support Dan Lawlis YouTube channel. So yeah, we're going to do that tonight as well. So I'm going to get it up here
Yeah,
momentarily.
what I started with a bunch of the these speed drawings that I did. I recorded myself
Those are
drawing
great.
it,
Mhm.
and it was a lot of fun. But I just I wasn't getting many views and stuff, and it's a lot of work to put
What's
these
your
things together.
favorite 5 artist, Dan, today? I
It's
mean,
still the
not
old.
way back, but
Oh,
new
today
art
I don't even know
working
today.
today. Huh?
I don't even know today what
You
I mean.
don't
I
know?
do like I think I do like Jorge Jimenez. I think it is.
Phil Jimenez. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I think he's very good.
He drew Wonder Woman, I think.
Yeah, but
Among others.
I mean, I like Adam Hughes, but again, that's kind of going back too, But I don't know. I've seen a few that I liked, and I can't think of them right now. But I just, honestly, I almost blotted it all out after, like, right to me when the Image guys came along. I think that was the nail in the coffin. Like it was. I didn't like the stylized artwork. I like the traditional drawing style of I like Gil Kane and Gene Colan and John Buscema and John Romita, in a certain extent Jack Kirby, but that's that dynamic realism. That's why Neil Adams. I like Neil Adams, and of course Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. I liked all those Warren artists who were really they're just really talented, great, can draw beautifully. And then comes along Liefeld, and it's just like, and it
Drawing
drove me
Pete.
nuts because I was like, this guy can't draw faces, he can't draw figures, and I don't think Jim Lee can really draw faces and figures that well either. He uses a lot of technique and stuff,
Right.
and it's not like on a level like a Dave Stevens or something. And these guys, and then well, the problem is everybody started copying all their mistakes. So all the comic book art, they weren't drawing. These guys weren't going to art school and learning from the Western, the art, the great art, like John Buscema or something. He's looking at Western art and he's looking at dynamic realism and the great illustrators like Norman Rockwell and all that. And they just threw the whole rule book away with the Image group and everybody copied it. So they had a generation of guys who just couldn't really draw because they just were copying bad drawings.
There's a lot of creators like Luis Dominguez. They weren't even, or George Perez, who weren't even, quote, from America.
Yeah. Well, I think in Europe and South America, they have the art program is much more traditional, and so that's where we're getting some of the best artists. It seems like from the other countries because they weren't exposed to all the Image nonsense.
Yeah.
Just the,
or Cal Arts. Yeah. Learn how
Yeah.
to draw figures on airplanes.
Yeah, but it's sad because to me it's like with such a great rich tradition of Western art, the realism of the N.C. Wyeth or Howard Powell and stuff like that. These great illustrators, and we've turned our back on it. That's why we're getting our butts kicked by manga because
It's true.
we kind of took a cartoony style approach to our art and it wasn't very good. So we were vulnerable, and here comes manga with its really well drawn, technology and stuff. And
What
the
about
buildings and
Alex
everything.
Ross, Dan?
Yeah, Alex
Alex
Ross is very.
Ross.
He's certainly a great illustrator. but although he doesn't, he's not doing a lot of regular. I honestly, I'm not a huge fan because it's just like a little too real for me. I
Yeah.
like something a little more. It's like I like the Frazettas and stuff. I like they got a little more.
Yeah.
I don't know what you would describe it as, but
A little raw, I guess, right? It's kind of a
Little
raw
grit.
approach.
a little more
Grit, yeah.
cartoony to it just a bit. Like
Yeah.
I mean, even you look at Norman Rockwell, he's or J.C. Linedecker, they were realistic, but they were kind of they were still an illustrative,
Exaggerated.
imaginative aspect
Yeah.
to them. The exaggeration, and Ross is really by the book. It's what Spider-Man looks like a guy wearing a costume. So
That's kind of why I like Art Adams and
Yeah.
like who did the Micronauts?
Michael Golden.
Michael Golden,
Yeah. It's
They
good.
kind of had similar cartoony.
yeah, they had
Look.
it's still real though. It's still a realistic aspect to it. And that's what's important, I think, is to kind of blend those two in something. But that's the Western tradition, I think, in comics, and that
Is
was
it hard
completely
to get a
ignored.
distinctive style, Dan? Where people go, oh, I know that's Frank Miller. I know that's Neil Adams, or
Yeah,
I
not
know that's
necessarily.
Neil Payne.
Anybody who's a young artist, I always recommend them is to look at the artist and copy the heck out of the artist they like, and then their own style will naturally emerge. Just like what happened with Neil Adams and Bill Sienkiewicz, and or you look at someone like Mobius. He was influenced obviously heavily by Winsor McKay and Tintin, the Hergé guy. Those two hit him hard, and you could see it in his work, and you copy those, but then all of a sudden this new kind of wild creative person came out of it. So I think you're if you really copy what you really love, you'll naturally start. Once it's sort of like apprentice and master. Once the apprentice becomes masters the other guy's art, then they can do more.
I think
creative
Barry
things.
Windsor Smith went through a shift in the early '80s with his like Machine Man and other things that he did. That was,
Yeah.
A decade earlier would have been Conan in '70.
Yeah, he became. I think he got a lot better. Yeah.
At that time, you mentioned Rich Buckler, Barry Windsor Smith. There were several that were said draw like Kirby, and they
Jim
did. They had a
Steranko.
Kirby. They
Yeah.
had a Kirby style.
Yeah.
They wanted them to draw like that.
Yeah.
So
Well, you
they
look at
all
someone
kinda
like,
started- Jim Steranko. Jim Steranko looked
Yeah.
like Kirby. Started.
We look at Travis Charest when he copied Jim Lee at first. Looked like Jim Lee. Copied all of his mistakes, so the faces were badly drawn at first. But then
Right.
he mastered, he got better, and then he did his own thing, and now he's way past Jim Lee and way beyond it. So yeah,
Out of all the image artists, do you think Jim was probably the most accomplished, or
yeah. Well, he worked really hard. I mean, I think he had trouble with faces and figures. His figures were a little stiff, and faces weren't well constructed. But he had a lot of great technique, great inker. Scott Adams was a great inker. That really helped him a lot
Yeah.
too.
I think
But,
a certain percentage of it is covering up your mistakes and
Yes.
still making it look good.
That's right. That's exactly what it is.
No, right?
And I think the image guy who was really stellar was Dale Keown, which is exciting to know that he's.
Oh, yeah.
And now his pit and his I loved his Hulk stuff. So he was one of the few guys, and I do think Mark Silvestri is a really good artist too. But I just and I wouldn't say
Well, Simon's
Jim Lee has done some great pieces of art and has told some great stories and stuff. He's got great style and stuff. But I'm just saying, as far as when maybe other people don't see what I'm seeing when I'm looking at his figures and they're wonky in animation and stuff, or I mean anatomy and stuff, and it's just like
Well, one thing that attracted me to the Marvel Universe was Jim Starlin's sort of cosmic, the things he worked on.
Warlock.
That expand, that they had these elders, or like Champion, like you mentioned, was like
right.
a big
Yeah.
person, brand
Yeah,
new.
I
then.
probably would have liked all that
Lawlis.
stuff again. I'm limited in how many comics I can buy because I'm buying myself and I'm for my paper
Right.
out money. It's like you could. I still remember Dad giving me this speech because I had this stack of comics and he's like, Dan, you can't spend all your money on comic books. Like I know. So I was
what
very
we-
selective. That's why I'd be very selective of what I bought. I had to pick out the ones that
Were they 12 cents when you started, or 20, or what?
25, I think.
Oh, 25.
20,
So I'm
25.
I'm 57, Dan. So
So am I.
I started
Good
I
age.
started out at 25 cents. I wasn't quite early enough, but you mentioned like, was it the Silver Surfer #4 where he's fighting Thor? Is that the
I
one
think
you're
so.
It's
Yeah.
number
talking
4.
about?
Yeah.
Now, see, that
Mhm.
was older. That was before we started collecting. That was a 25
He's
center
back.
itself, but it was extra thick. It was like 2 issues in one.
Yep.
I always struggled with that. Could I get an annual or something?
I know. I
You
know.
know,
Oh yeah.
DC came out with those dollar comics, and it's like, yeah, but can
The
I?
real
I
big
could
ones.
almost
Yeah.
get 2 of these comics for that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
So it
Right.
really had to have the content for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
So,
be at a good value, like these little 100 pagers that started off at 95 cents. And then, of
Digest,
course,
man. Those are
yeah, the
great.
little digest, and my eyes were better then. But I mean,
Wow.
you had a lot of content and just these easy to hold. I had this, my father made these back here, and I had a whole library of these just across of little mini digest
Wow.
books. And that's where I learned a lot of my DC knowledge, was reading that, because I would get exposed to like Sergeant Rock with Joe Kubert artwork, another great artist. Uh, I like that he doesn't put a lot of detail in his feet. He's like, I just, people know what a foot looked like. Your mind, you had to leave something for people's mind to fill in the blanks.
yeah.
I
Hey,
thought that
another
was
artist I just thought of is Jerry Bingham. I really liked a lot of
Yeah.
his work.
Oh yeah. That you're
Jerry
right about
Bingham
that.
is from Arkansas. Did you know
Is he
that?
really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now he
He
does a
drew
lot.
the Black
Now he's
Panther
painting
comic
westerns,
strip
right? He
for him.
paints a lot of western.
Yeah.
Does a lot of western art, right? So,
I remember him working on Black Panther.
Yeah. Right after
yes.
Kirby
Yeah.
left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did a really cool, sleek Black Panther, which was awesome. Yeah.
So cool. Oh man.
Yeah. So there's a lot of great artists. Keith Pullard. He was another. You remember the
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
And
I
he
used to start
worked
out
for
um,
Thor, Green Lantern. So he worked
Black
for both.
Goliath. He was on number 5 of Black Goliath in the
Mhm.
70s. I
Yeah.
remember that issue. It's
He was
pretty
one of
good.
my favorites.
yeah,
Oh, he
good,
is good.
solid.
But I
Good-
mean, is there
good,
the
really drawn.
talent pool, or is it just that we're kind of scattered now, Dan?
Man, it's hard to put a beat on it because I swear I go to the library just sometimes pick up a trade paperback, and it's hard to read it. Like they don't know how to tell stories or something anymore. They don't
Mhm.
they don't know just the panel to panel. You pick up an old comic book. It's so easy to read. It's effortless. It just flows.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'm reading a story, and when you got to go flip back a page and like, wait, what's going on here? That's bad. It should you should always
Yeah.
it should be easy to read. Jim Shooter was good at one thing that he did right is he would have recaps in the next issue, like
Oh,
what
yeah, I
happened
love
before,
that.
and there was he didn't just tell it, he redrew it. They have him draw little frames from what was, so you were always kept up to date. He explained everything. He took that philosophy of show don't tell, and that's why those comic books were so popular. I think they were easy to read and young people could read them, but I mean, even for an older person, I think you should have a clear storytelling. It's very important, and I don't think they're doing that right now. I don't think they know
No.
how.
Well, in Golden Age comics, I find them very simple, but
Yeah.
sometimes you'll get really wordy. I mean, they're every panel just full of. It loses me, Dan, with that much exposition in
Right.
there. I was really surprised that some of that old stuff had so much story. It's like, wow, these were ever very literate, or they had a lot to say.
Or they just didn't care and they're just chucking his
It
stuff
would
out.
it wouldn't go over today. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they got paid like $5 a page for a page rate. Those were
Yeah.
big pages.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
gotta
But now,
man,
imagine.
here's the thing is too, is they're so expensive now. Like I can't just go out and buy, 10 comic books. What that's like, it's like,
It's like $40 or something.
yeah, it's like ridiculous. I'm not gonna.
I felt like drugs. I mean, I felt like comics
price of
was my drug habit. Back in the day, it's like,
that's
man,
good.
where's all my money going? Comics,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
then and the
Yeah.
stack gets going smaller and
Yeah.
smaller.
But the
and
characters
smaller.
were, a comic book is a noble idea. The concept of a hero is a good thing, and I think that was great for us young people to hear. Heroes are inspirational. It's great stuff. So, I mean, I know I loved it, and I know I was inspired by it. So, even Conan, even Conan's like, you think, oh, he's killing people and all this stuff, but he's actually the least barbaric in his barbaric setting. And he's so
It's true.
it's generally he fights against the corrupt, rulers and that sort of thing, and evil wizards. But
Well, comics kind of made me a reader.
yeah,
Yeah, me too.
yeah,
Yeah. I wasn't used to reading novels and just a bunch of words. I'm a visual guy. I like to see pictures and
I do too.
drawings and art, and it's all good. Dan, have you created any of your own characters in the past or something like that?
well, I guess I did. Uh, it was like, I think it was around 2007. I see. Here's the story with me was I was in from 87 to 97, and the problem was, I was getting paid $100 a page to do a page, and I could do maybe 4 pages a week or something. That's $400 a week. That's 20 grand a year, and I'm like, I got a family. I can't raise a family on that. So I
Right.
found storyboards, which you can that's $75 a frame, and you can do a lot of those in a day. The jobs aren't as regular, but they're intense. But that was I could make a decent living enough to so I had to leave comics just for the money. It just was.
I
But also I was
understand.
not happy with the art. But but also I was so sick of the preaching of the political
Yeah.
stuff. It was back then. It was in my day too. It's just like, oh my gosh. I mean, like I mentioned to you, Brett, this first time I got a superhero. Okay, here it is, and it was U.S. Agent. Now, U.S. Agent was he was fighting against this. The villain was this guy who was opening fire on little kids coming across the border, and I'm just like, it was so depressing, and it was, but it was it was all about this guy was a right wing fanatic and that sort of thing, and I'm just like,
Oh man.
oh gosh, and
Yeah.
like the liberal wet dream kind of thing,
Right.
So I'm just like, that was my whole career was just constantly stories like that, just like, oh, you're the bad guy, kind of, the white, the preacher was always the evil guy possessed by demons and stuff, and I'm just like,
Oh
so anyways,
no.
when I left, I was just in storyboards, and I came back and I created this comic book, and it was like I was kind of CG before CG, and the problem was it was weird. I really want to do a weird science fiction story, and it was just an online thing, and it didn't have any links because I didn't know I didn't know there was no YouTube or anything. I didn't know how to produce it or whatever. So
Wow.
it was that was my first and only like my own creation stuff, and but it was a bit of a middle finger to the comic book industry, to tell you the truth,
Well,
I
now do
hear you,
you
man. Wow.
are
because it was
there
right wing. It was conservative. It was Christian. It was
Yeah.
pro life, for goodness sake.
are
Oh
there
yeah.
a story? I mean, is there a story you want to tell?
Yeah, actually, now this is why I'm kind of coming back into comics. Is a possibility to create my own stuff, and I have a character, it's a kind of a barbaric character, kind of a Conan type character.
Oh, okay.
Great.
So I just got to do it. But the thing is, it's like I know what it is. It's so much work, It's because
Yeah.
I want if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna paint the thing. It's gonna be
Oh,
really,
hell
it's
yeah.
gonna. I want it to look really, really good. But that's a lot of work. So, and I have no illusions about how much work that'll be. So I've got to just get a decent amount of it done, and then see how long that
Chip
takes me
away.
to
How
be
do
able
you
to estimate.
eat an elephant one bite at a time? I mean,
Yes,
do like the cover piece or do
yeah,
a pinup or,
yeah.
you know,
Well, I got some stuff. I got some stuff working on the table, but so it's kind of happening, but it's just. But I mean, I gotta do my regular work too. So I gotta fit this
sure.
around regular
Yeah.
pain work.
Now you got
Yeah.
grandkids.
Well, yeah, I could have not
Oh
yet,
wow.
but
Not yet? Okay.
Not yet. So
Don't,
Travis Perrick has a question. Dan, what movies and TV shows did you storyboard?
TV commercials,
Oh,
not movies.
commercials. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it would be a lot of stuff like I remember like Krylon paints or BF Goodrich tires or stuff like that. So
Oh, that's pretty cool. So, compared to a comic book page, like $100 per page, how does storyboards? How do they pay out? I'm sure it's a lot
$75 a
more.
frame, and you can do like 6 or 8 of those a day.
Oh wow, for
Yeah,
75 a pop for
yeah,
6 of those. Wow,
yeah.
that's pretty good.
But the thing is, you're doing these fast and furious, and they just need you for a couple days, and then you're kind of recovering, like the rest
Okay.
of the time. And so those those they don't come as often as you'd like, but they so you just kind of like, and then between that I would do little illustration jobs. So, but just I did all. I mean, I just illustrated so many different kinds of book covers, anything you could anything you could come up with. So,
Sure.
So what year did you do digital art? I mean, I've seen you do a lot of
yeah,
digital
well,
stuff.
so a lot of my stuff now is colored. Uh, because the color pencil I said doesn't reproduce well, so I draw my stuff, I scan it, and then I color it in Photoshop. And
Okay.
so, but I actually there's certain things I did fully digitally, like the two-fisted manly tails cover. There's no
Hmm.
original art for that. That's fully digital. So I drew it on the computer, colored it. Brett, just that thing I posted today with the Frazetta kind of study, that's all
Yeah.
digital. I'm
Yeah.
drawing on that. I'm drawing on my tablet. I'm
It's
coloring it, but
easier.
that was just an experiment. I was just playing around and just doing a little study. So yeah, so I love I do the great thing about digital is total control now. That's what I love is I can if it goes to print, I can figure out, okay, that's a 25% red, and like 50% gray, and this, like I can actually use the eyedropper, and when it goes to the printer, I know exactly the colors it's going to print, like how it's going to go.
That's
Total
cool.
control, which is
Yeah.
great, and it was so frustrating in comics to get stuff back, and it would be colored weird, and
Oh yeah.
inking was terrible. So I thought I was done with comics until computers, and then like I said, the latest thing, the CG thing, where this is now I could actually spend some time on a comic book. 'Cause that was the problem too. I couldn't do the quality I wanted to do in a monthly book. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Rush,
it
rush,
was
rush.
extremely frustrating because I got into comics. I'm like, I'm ready. I'm going to do great comics, and then I started doing stuff, and inking was bad, and the coloring was bad, and like it was like taking you a step back. You go this far, and then it's like walking up a sandhill. It just slips back a little bit. Really
I would
frustrating
probably have
experience.
my enthusiasm beat out of me in 2 months, with all the different,
Yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
got to have this done, and it's more like a job, and you're like,
Right. That's
oh, God.
exactly. I
It
started to
is a
hate
job.
comics, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
So,
So who introduced you to CG? How did you discover it?
well, what happened was there was I'm trying to think. It was there was a guy, an artist named Francesco, and he had a Facebook page, and there was a lot. There was he invited everybody, and he had said right and left wing people in there. Started to clash, and I was kind of on the conservative side of things,
Yeah.
and so like when Orson Scott Card got canceled from writing Superman,
Oh.
we all had it out. And I think I think now it was Mags Vesaccio that I was going toe to toe with and arguing with what I thought was a girl. But I still remember I was arguing with this what I thought was a girl, and I'm like, man, she's just so aggressive. She just seems so manly. She's just everything she says is just it's like and then I found out like, oh, now I get it. I was
Right.
arguing with like a dude like
She's a man, baby.
that's exactly what it was like. Anyways, so I was kind of known sort of I guess in the comic circles as being on the conservative side of things, and then there was this Mike Harris, a comic book artist. He started this comic book group, private Facebook group. He invited all the conservative guys in there, so everybody was in there. We had the Ethan was in there for a while, and that's why when I first saw, like, we had this group running for a while, and just there at the event because all these guys have been blacklisted and everything. Mike
Right.
S. Miller was there, all that stuff.
Oh,
Mike
yeah.
Barron was there, and Ethan came in, and he had just lost, the DC thing had just fallen out, and everyone was like, "Oh, gee," because this is what we basically did. We consulted. Oh, I feel so bad for
Right.
you. Here's my
We
story.
need an intervention group.
Yeah.
Yes, pretty much. It was-
A little alcohol.
so he was in there for a while, and it was really sad to see that. So that's when I became aware of him and the whole movement. And then when he went out and did the YouTube thing, I was aware of it, just for people talking about it. And so I've been watching it at the beginning, watching this from the sidelines for a while. So I know the whole history of it, and I saw it develop and everything. But I wasn't sure when I was going to throw my hat in the ring and
that's good
go
stuff.
for it. And
Amen.
I'm still not sure if I am, but I tell you what, when I finally came out publicly was I was listening live to Ethan, and he had that one stream where he told the professional guys that he had his daughter had autism. He had kept that a secret,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and
Yep.
that's when I just something just clicked to me. I said, "Freaking, I'm in, man!" Because I was pissed. Now they pissed me off. It's like because
Yeah.
they put a man on the street with a baby who was autistic. Those
Yeah.
MFers. And now I'm
Yeah,
pissed.
that's right.
So that was like if you actually go back and see that episode, that's the first time you see me in the chat. Like not right at that moment, but later in the chat, I'm just because I was just like I'm in. That's it. I can't I can't take this anymore. You know.
That's
So
beautiful.
that from then on, I was just in chats and stuff and
Oh yeah.
getting to know
Yeah.
everybody in it. And I tell you, I love it because I tell you
I
what,
too.
when I was in comics back in the '80s, here I'm just I'm not in the New York area or anything like that, and I didn't really know. I knew one comic artist really. It was extremely lonely, because this is a solitary job. It's really
Yeah.
your hours on the table. And I didn't, the best thing was conventions. When you go to conventions, you meet all these people and everybody, and it was exciting and fun. But for the most part, it was a solitary, I hated it. I hated it. A miserable job
Yeah.
in that realm. So this is great. This is what I love. So that's one thing I'm excited about because now it's almost too like I'm inspired to do art because like I'm talking to to Aaron Lepresti or Andy Smith and they're like, "What did you do this week?" And I'm like, "Oh, I better do something this week."
There you
Like
go.
Well,
even you guys are like, "So when are you gonna do your comic, Dan?" I'm like, "Oh, I guess I gotta get going."
All right.
crack the whip.
It was
Shadowhawk.
a very solitary fandom back in those days too,
Very much
man.
so.
You had
Very much
no
so.
way to
Shadowhawk.
talk to your heroes, and it, it's so much cooler now.
It is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm getting a kick out of it. So and
Shadowhawk. One thing he was like one of those few fans that picked up Cyberfrog when it was Hall of Heroes and
Yeah.
followed it through Harris and the whole thing till it ended. So he got in on the ground floor, and I always loved that. And his favorite character is Salamandroid. So you know that kind of drew you back to comics, didn't it, Shadowhawk?
Yep, yeah. 2018, I got hurt. I was off work for a little while, so I got to spend a lot of time on the internet, and I happened to come across Ethan, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And Ethan Van Sciver, what's he doing? And then I found out about everything that had happened to him in 2017, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And so I immediately backed Cyberfrog, and I've been total balls to the wall ever since.
Amen, brother. Me too. I've never even heard of Cyberfrog except for American Entertainment back in '93, and I didn't know what to think of it. And then when I saw Ethan's own channel, I said Cyberfrog. Okay, I remember that character. I started buying it too, man. His art's just phenomenal.
The
And
one thing
yeah.
about the image that
I would say get a copy of Warts and All. It's got all the '90s stuff collected.
I have that. That's in my
Yeah.
bookshelf, brother.
Interesting
Yeah.
enough, I just finished reading that, and
Yeah, if you
I
read that and you don't have a great time, then
yeah.
just,
Well,
you
the
don't
interesting
belong
thing is
in
it's so
comics.
different to the one that's out now,
yeah.
and
Oh
but
yeah,
I was having I tell you, Cyberfrog is tough to draw. Like I
God,
really
it
couldn't
is.
that's what
every
everyone
time I
says.
drew him, it bombed. Okay, so but then I tell you, if you look on my Instagram, my the
I
I just
saw
did a
that.
Cyberfrog after I read Warts and All. I feel like I just finally dialed into the character. I got it. Like, yeah, that's it. So I got one good Cyberfrog so far. We'll see if I can continue,
Well,
getting those down.
I'm
But
gonna check it out.
This would be great. Let's check it out. Yeah, I think I could find it.
Yeah, I'm
It's,
a
it's a
big
beautiful
Frog fan.
drawing too, man.
Well, I
but
really think the
he's
momentum.
got attitude. Cyberfrog's got that attitude,
Yeah, he
and you got to
does.
capture that.
Oh yeah,
And he's froggy too. It's
He's
all that. You got to
froggy,
get a
man.
feel for these characters. Sometimes
Well,
it takes me a
you
long
kind of
time.
had that with Ninja Turtles, and what there was a lot of black and white, Stan, but it was the gray toning in the early Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and just that name. And I took issue 2 home that I found in a back issue bin, and I immediately went back for 3, 4, and 5 that were in there or something. I wasn't sure at first. I just took one, read it, and couldn't make it back fast enough. It
Yeah.
looked, and I look back on it now, and it looks like a glorified underground comic.
There it
Yeah.
is. There's that.
Well,
There's that
it
cover.
was a glorified underground comic, but it was the
Yep.
shit at the time.
Oh wow, that's
Great
great,
job.
Dan.
Look at that. Look at that. Good job.
Wow. If somebody told me that was a Del Keown, I might believe them. That is good.
Thanks.
Not to make comparisons, but that's just up
Yeah,
there.
that's
Yeah.
nice. dude.
People are saying, "Hey,
Holy
you've seen some of
shit.
this latest stuff from Dale?" I mean, people are saying, "Oh, he's lost it." He has not lost it. He is.
He's
He's
not.
It was
I
not
don't know what they're
busted,
talking
dude.
about.
Not at
Yeah.
all.
It's good stuff, man.
Man. It's popping.
If anything, we'll get some more pit out of him, right?
Oh,
Yeah, that'd be
yes.
cool. Yeah.
Oh,
No,
dude,
that was
he's got
see that
Phil
that was the
writing
one
it right
image.
now.
Writing it. Phil Diaz writing it.
That was the
Yeah.
one image book that I thought was just out of this world. It was so good.
I loved it.
mean,
Yeah.
So but see, he's you could see he's pulling from Bernie Wrightson. He's inspired by really good artists. And so I just he's not covering up with just technique.
He
He's got
started
a
out
solid
at Air
draw.
Sale, though. He started out at Air Sale.
Yes.
I mean,
Samurai.
so many artists that established, or if it wasn't fanzines,
Yeah.
like Jim Starlin started out in, or it was little independent comics that a lot of artists started out in, and then they kind of graduated up as they matured.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating to see some artists early work because they start out in these little know nothing books,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had some of that stuff. Yeah. I remember the first comic I actually had was for a comic company called Spectrum Comics.
Oh yeah.
Oh
they
yeah,
had
back
great
in the
colors.
mid '80s, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
what time
early.
did you
I
work
don't
on?
think when I got into it, they're kind of falling apart and going out of business. So, but I was working on a character called, I think, the Guardian. And,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I
Yes,
think
I
I got
have
one or
those.
two issues. I think did it
Yep.
come out just
yeah,
two?
and they were
One
pretty
or
well
two?
done. They were pretty good art. I remember looking
I
at it going,
like the quality. I like that it was in full color too, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't like black and white.
Yeah,
It
written by
So-
Fred Schiller, and then Fred Schiller pulled me into Majestic when they had the card company and that sort of thing. So actually, that was the first time in comics I actually made some money.
Yeah.
Really?
Like I could actually not starve to death money, non-starving to death wages.
Now, was Majestic a
Starvation.
name of a company? Did they do trading cards also?
They
or-
they did trading cards and baseball cards and all that kind of stuff, but the cards were getting really hot at the time, and there was this new thing where they did a story that was broken up into the cards, so they created a whole bunch of characters and all that stuff. I don't think the characters were the greatest, but they were interesting enough. He was kind of pulling from a sort of an X-Men feel or what New Mutants kind of feel, that kind of thing.
Are there any inkers that you really like to work with?
Ian Aiken was the guy that inked me and my stuff at Dark Horse. That's what was the greatest experience, because he nailed everything I drew down and did better and sometimes than I can do. And I mean, his line work is always better than something I can do. But I'm just saying it, like, as far as getting the just the drawing right and that sort of thing, it just looked great. I liked Barbed Wire. I like Agents of the Law. Those are my favorite.
One of the
comics.
things that I like is you mentioned trading cards, is that with your, you can make bookmarks, trading cards, magnets, you can make this stuff and put it with your book. I think that's a lot of fun.
It is fun, yeah. Absolutely.
Oh man, good stuff, man. Whoa. So how do people get paid on the trading cards compared to comic pages? I'm assuming they pay more for trading card, right? Or
Yeah, well, this card company had some money to throw at us. That was the thing. So
okay.
I think I don't think they did that well, frankly. But they paid us. They wanted to see what they could do if they could get into this. They were looking for, it was a big hot item, and they wanted to see if they could do well with it. And I don't know if they did that well, but they paid us a decent amount of money. I mean, I don't know how much it was per trading card. But anyways, I made, like I said, an actual living
Nice.
I wasn't rich, but I was like, it wasn't,
Right.
there's food on the table,
There you go. Have you ever worked for Wizards of the Coast or any of those?
No, no, no.
Oh man,
There's
you'd be
so many
good.
great artists out there though that
Yeah,
working in the gaming companies now. I mean, those guys are really good.
yeah,
I would be just a drop in the bucket there. They don't need any talent there. I really think that my best place for if I want to do stuff is in this independent market, the CG group and that sort of
amen.
group,
Oh
I
yeah.
because
agree.
I do believe it's the future because you're going to have people direct to customer, just like, I mean, Brian Paluto's been doing it with Lady Death and that kind of stuff, and Billy Tucci with She. It's been done, but now I think it's even going to get stronger and more interesting.
They were
Hopefully,
kind
maybe
of
the prices will come down a little bit. Maybe we'll see, but because it is a
they
little
were kind of
expensive.
icebreakers,
Yep,
breaking the ice,
that's right.
trailblazing.
Yeah,
They are
I
absolute
think that's
trailblazers.
why it's a new model. It's something new to a certain degree. I mean, it's all like you said, distribution. We've always had a distribution problem. There's Diamond, and we saw that fall apart in 2020 with the pandemic.
Yep.
yeah,
Um, they were like, well, we can't play our, bills. We can't play uh, our distributors or I mean our, you know,
all right.
venues that, and we saw how wishy-washy. And frankly, if things hadn't started up like a couple weeks later, I think Diamond would have went under. And then after that, everybody was like, yeah, I think we're going to go over here. There was a few go off to
Yeah.
different distribution things, but when
Yeah,
it comes to comic or any magazine, you have to have good distribution, and that's
yeah, you
always
do.
been a problem with comics. And Dan, I think the problem goes all the way back to the pulps, goes back to the 30s. It was a
Mhm.
sweatshop. You work on
Yeah,
this large place, $5 or
hmm,
whatever, barely a living wage,
Yeah.
and then it's like, yeah, we need it now, and
Yeah.
right,
Wasn't it like
they're
a penny a word or something like that?
you've heard, yeah, you've
right.
heard the horror stories of some of these people that were very hard to work for, and they were penny pinchers, you
Yeah,
know.
they were.
And I think a lot of that carried over. And I know Neil Adams and others fought for creators' rights, and I think that was
Siegel and
another
Schuster
thing
got screwed. Yeah,
when Jack Kirby asked him for pages, his artwork back, and uh, creators' rights, and then
Yeah.
helping a fund for ones that may be uh, paralyzed in bed. Where's their retirement?
yeah.
I think a
William
lot of
Messer and
things
Lowe's.
good came out of that over
Yeah.
time, but it was
Mhm.
always the creator standing up and saying these things need to change. I think we've been decades behind,
Yeah.
We
and
have
now
been.
we're just now catching up.
I think so too.
Yeah,
Absolutely. The thing that's so exciting
amen.
though is, like I said, we're interacting with everybody, and like I don't know if you guys know, and Aaron Lepresti's Wraith of God book. He's got a Garbage Man, a 16-page story, and I'm
Yeah.
going
Oh
to
yeah.
color that. And
Oh,
and,
Oh,
cool.
and
awesome.
Nice.
that was an exciting experience because I'm on a
Oh,
show
okay.
with him, and we did this show for a while called The Players, and for that kind of fell apart lately, um, but that's a mess. But I'm looking at this Garbage Man stuff he's doing. It looks like Bernie Rice, and I'm like, oh man, I sure would love to color that. He's like, well, you want to color it? Like, yeah, you know. And so it was so organic, it was just like I had a passionate, like, this is a passion project. It's like
Oh,
I see this
Travis.
stuff, I really know I can color it, and I know that so because we're kind of similar artists, dynamic realist type artists,
Huh?
and
Yeah.
so it's a lot of fun, and he's gonna, we're both fans of Bernie Wright's and all that stuff, so I'll color it in that traditional style, that painterly way, in a very different way than most colors would color it.
Oh man,
So it's gonna be a lot of
I
fun, and it should be
love
should be a good looking thing, hopefully. But
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like, give me
it
some
will.
pages. He's
Aaron's
like, he's
work.
finally give me some pages finally. I'm like, because I did color 2 pages. If you look on his Wraith of God Indiegogo, there's 2 pages up there. But then those are the ones that have been there for, I did those months ago. So it's like I want to do some more.
Yeah.
So he's,
I and
So, so-
Shadowhawk talked about that earlier today. I think didn't
Oh,
use the term
Aaron's one of my
icebreakers,
favorites right now,
oh
man.
yeah.
what
but
was
you
that?
had it almost to give the movement validity, the get the momentum going, you almost it was had to have some of these cancel cultured professionals come in so that others could enter in behind them that perhaps always wanted to make a comic like myself but never did.
Right.
And now
Yeah.
I see so many people that always wanted but they didn't want to work for the big two, or they just, things didn't work out
Yeah,
for them.
it's well. This is great. They, of course, they hate it because they can't control any of us anymore, and that's
Right. Yeah.
fantastic news.
And another exciting aspect about it, like Shelby Roberts that worked for Rob Liefeld at Image, and there's other, not just him, but others that got out of comics like yourself, and they're coming back to it now. So
Yep.
I only see good things when that happens, Dan.
Yeah. Yeah.
When
Well,
people are
exactly.
reading
Here's the thing: is I'm working
especially
in
at our age.
I'm working in advertising. I'm drawing, just, like I said, Coach purses or something, furniture, lawn furniture, whatever it is,
Right.
And it's like it just felt. I mean, I could do that stuff, and I can make an okay living. Not rich, but middle class living kind of. But it seems like a waste. You know what I'm saying? When I know what I can do. I know I can paint the crap out of stuff and really do some. It just felt weird. Like I should be doing this. And so all this stuff coming together, it just seems right to me because I'm like, yeah, I really almost seems wrong not to do it if you can do it. You know what I'm saying? Like if you can really do professional stuff and deliver comics to an audience of comic book fans,
Well, I and
should do
Apex
it.
last year interviewed Steve
A
Rude,
hungry
and
audience.
he said
Yeah.
a hungry audience, exactly. Uh, he said it's almost like a sacred trust from Jack Kirby to Ditko to handing down from generation to generation. The ones that's going to pick up the mantle, the rally stick, and
Yep.
carry it forth. It is kind of like a sacred trust, isn't it, Dan?
Absolutely, and that trust has been broken by Marvel and DC, and they ought to be ashamed.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
It's just they just there's nobody at the wheel in my opinion.
And if
There
they're
isn't.
broken, it's almost like America, right? We're the strongest economy, and so much hinges on us and has for so long since World War II, really. Uh, so goes America, so goes the whole world. And it's the same way with the big two. It seems like that now you have shake up in what's been very stable. They got a good track records because I can think of, Eclipse no longer around, CrossGen no longer around, just so many different, Andy Smith and Aaron Lopresti worked for CrossGen. They're no longer around.
Right.
Whether it's through mismanagement or whatever, it's not a healthy market where you have like
What's the other one?
IDW $60 million in debt or more,
Oh yeah.
and I know it seems like, if we can only, the influence of like TV and movies, if I can only make a comic that'll be turned into something like that or a Netflix show, is that really your end game?
Yeah,
That's not
I'm
comics.
I'm glad to see Ethan has resisted the buyouts from these people who want to come in just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what was the latest guy? Just the political guy that was just bought out of his own company, the Veritas company. What was the guy?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Project
Glenn Danzig.
okay.
No. I'm talking about a political guy the guy
No.
who was doing those. James O'Keefe. Yeah.
James
Yeah.
O'Keefe.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
was.
he got kicked out of
He
Project
gave his company to investors and stuff.
Oh,
and
he did. I
fired
did
him.
not hear that.
I didn't
Really?
either. Whoa.
Oh,
Yeah,
crap.
So he's it's like there's a good example. You go you get these investors coming in and saving you. You're best off doing it yourself.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And that's the best individualistic.
All these
way.
places that accept government money, the government's going to have something to say about what
That's
you do.
right.
Yeah. Control.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't even
Yeah.
think it was government money. It was just an internal coup.
Yeah.
Travis Perk says comics is the canary in the coal mine of culture. Why? It's a rough
Well,
world out there, but we
it's
can
kind of
Yeah.
make
like
it better.
Twilight Zone, and then you have Night Gallery. Twilight
Yeah,
Zone's
Twilight Zone Night Gallery.
the
That's
thing at the
scary,
time,
bro.
and then Night
That's
There's
Gallery.
a
by Rod
lot of dead
Serling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, the
lot of
comics have
dead
always been,
puppies.
they always leaned left. Like I say, all the stories I worked on were left-leaning
Yeah.
stories. When
Well,
I
you
was
can
going,
think of like Neil Adams and O'Neill that did the Green
Green
Lantern, and
Lantern. Yeah.
yeah, with the
Arrow.
I mean
Yeah,
breaking taboos at the time with
Yeah.
drugs, and
Yeah. Yeah.
but
And
it was all
every
left
every
wing.
every homeless guy is a saint. Every police officer is a
Talking
horrible.
about
You know.
race, how do you see me, my face? Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
but it was always left leaning, like you
yeah.
said, but it wasn't overtly like
Right.
a seal in a club,
Well,
It wasn't.
the
Oh
back
yeah.
back then the philosophy was amongst these liberal artists and stuff was, I may not agree with you what you have to say, but I defend to the death your right to say it. That's what the
Exactly.
attitude is. That is
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
gone. They're like they don't
Gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
defend you. They want to shut you up and close everything down. And
I heard
it's
today
like
on Glenn Beck where a gentleman has a project that he's been doing for years where people get into conversations. They fill out all the forms or whatever to do it, and they all these recordings are sent to the National Archive or whatever. And but they get into, what did you think from what it was? Like one woman thought, oh, he's just your standard white person. He thought, and he wasn't. He was black, and she was a black woman, and he thought, oh, she's just an old Democrat nut. And what it is they get in a conversation with each other. And I think once, you get in a conversation, you say people are basically good. I mean, if you're just not mentally ill, you have things that you may disagree on, but what you agree on far outweighs what you disagree on,
yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah, most
And you
people
can,
live their lives as conservative, morally conservative,
yeah. Mhm.
But
Yeah.
it's just it's the fringe that really is out there. But the problem is they're running the media and those guys, and
Education. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I
Hey,
wish they would quit calling it mainstream media because
it's
it's just
not.
mainstream propaganda. And
that's
that's a
right.
danger, Dan, when you
It
don't know
is.
what to believe. When you
Mhm.
can't find out what the true news is, that's
Yeah,
a danger.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
We need to know what's going on.
what my greatest fear really is that now the ability to shut down freedom of speech by way of what I can't believe the people in Canada didn't revolt when Trudeau froze the assets of those people protesting. Like
Yeah.
Oh
that was
man.
scary to me because that's what they do in China. If they don't throw you in the gulag anymore, they just turn off your credit card so you can't buy food. What are you gonna do? And if you try to help them, they'll turn off your credit card too. And it's so
Mhm.
it's a scary world right now. People don't realize just how dangerous I think
Where
this
do you
really is.
see us in 5 years, Dan? Personally,
Oh, I don't know.
you don't
I
know?
don't know. That's really I wish I could be optimistic, but it's just the
You
kookiness
you
that I
you
see out there.
you almost have to be
I
a
see us in space with Hal going, I'm sorry I had to cut off your life support, man.
This is a really good segue to promote my graphic novel, guys.
No,
Yes,
it's
you
not.
too can buy a copy of Americans versus
No,
Oh
Amabo.
God, nobody wants to see this.
Yes, at youronlinepublicist.com, available for only $15.99. Thank you very much. Youronlinepublicist.com, American versus Amabo, a story of American who's concerned about the rights of all Americans, who doesn't like being oppressed by the terrible,
Oh my gosh, that's
terrible
right.
mob.
Oh my gosh.
Liar, liar, pants on fire. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mama spelled backwards.
Youronlinepublicist.com. Yes, Obama spelled backwards. Youronlinepublicist.com.
oh,
Thank you very
mama.
much. And back to the show. All right.
Oh,
You know,
my
though,
had to
that's
do
what. But when I mentioned the comic book that I kind of created briefly, just almost like that is just to kind of the opposite. And looking back now, I don't like it as much because I don't really want to do political stuff. Really, I just want to have
understand.
fun, create cool stuff. But like the villain that I created he was morphing into this monster, and he was saying things like, we're the ones we waited for, things like that. We're the ones we've been waiting for, because he turns into all these creatures and stuff.
Oh yeah,
But
man.
it's ripe with those stupid things they say. The left, just
And especially
communist,
after seeing Brett
lingo,
trailer.
I know,
misinformation.
right?
Doesn't
Yeah.
that sends a chill around anybody who knows anything about history? Misinformation. You're
Yeah.
spreading misinformation is frightening language,
The
because
thing is, you
holy
can't find
smokes.
out what's going on. When they say
Yeah.
we took out this terrorist, I'm like, did we really?
I
Are
know.
they
It's
saying
so
that?
funny. I
Yeah,
don't trust it anymore. I don't
I
trust
I
know,
don't either.
but
I don't
Oh,
either.
you
what?
got to know what's going on.
I
Yeah.
do
You know,
watch
I mean,
Newsmax.
when we were growing up, it's like if there was an emergency, they would come out and tell you, and you would like, yeah, I need to get to safety.
Right.
Now
See
I
it.
don't know what to
They
believe.
don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's a
What's
scheme.
with
Seems
It's
this
a
like
one?
they're
scam.
taking advantage of.
This one group, they had this big train derailment and all these toxic stuff, and
Oh
they're
God,
just like
that's going to affect
not even
people.
declaring it an emergency. Like,
No.
what? It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
It's not the same country. I tell you, it's really really weird. And
It's really not.
I would have to say I'm very concerned. Very concerned. That we're taking too many people take it for granted, and we're gonna have to wake up, because you can lose
Look,
your
if we
freedoms.
would just, I
Sure.
could solve the energy problem. Just attach some electrodes to Reagan's grave and to Walt Disney's grave, and they're spinning in their
Yeah,
graves. We'll
probably.
have,
There's
you know,
lots of power right there.
we'll have lots of power just right there.
I still
Oh
remember,
yeah.
like, I was in art. I remember I was in art school, and there was there's a bunch of guys, and like, Ronald Reagan's in town. We're gonna go protest Ronald Reagan. And I was like, I love Ronald Reagan. And
I too.
they looked at me like I had just stepped off the mothership. Like what? What's what? Like, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Where did you grow up, Dan?
I'm in Michigan, so yeah.
You're in
Okay.
Michigan. Well, see, a
Nice.
lot of people from the South migrated up to Michigan for the jobs, right? And
Right.
Detroit and areas like that during the war years. So,
Yeah.
I had family up in Michigan and things.
Yeah. Well, my dad was just he's a conservative. He was a conservative man. He fought World War II. He was a Marine, and
Wow.
so he just really had he was just had a really solid moral base, and so
So your
that was instilled.
father was older when you were born because you were seventh in line, right?
Yeah.
So have you thought about this aspect? Because I was adopted and my parents were older. I think through osmosis or just being around them being, hey, we've been there before. We're not newlyweds. We're not new to this rearing children thing. You kind of pick up on that maturity from your parents.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about that, Dave?
my dad was adopted, actually, and so he his upbringing was a little bit it was kind of a mess, because he was adopted by people who ran moonshine, and
Oh wow.
Oh,
and so he grew up with a lot of stuff, but he so he's 17 years old, thrown into World War II, and that was called crazy. But he said he saw the billboards of smiley happy families. He saw his friends and the white picket fences in their house. He goes, I want that, and he did it. He pursued it, and he got it. And one of 8 kids, it's like and everyone's sort of normal.
Yeah.
As normal as you can be, I suppose. And so I'm saying he really had that just conservative Christian background that sort of saved him, and kind of
Well, what
brought it
happened
into
with the shift of comics away from? I mean, during World War II,
Oh,
they were
yeah.
sold by the millions. I know it was like the pulps, cheap entertainment, but
mhm.
people were dying on the battlefield with Action Comics in their backpack.
Yeah.
They sold
Yeah.
by the millions.
Yes.
What happened? It seemed like priorities changed. Was it, I want the white picket fence, the house, my priorities have changed. I want a family, or was it just that? I mean, superheroes
I
kind of
think
went out
that
in the
it's. I think
atomic age.
it's personally. I think it's political. I think it's
Yeah.
leftist versus the left has always hated the conservative America. The individual rights and all that stuff. It just doesn't go against it goes against their narrative, and so they've been working on it for years, and finally they've
You
gotten
think
in.
they were the book burners of the early 50s where it was
Absolutely.
talking about
Absolutely.
juvenile delinquency?
Well, I don't know exactly. Those may have been some conservative people doing some of that,
Yeah,
because they saw this
Yeah.
stuff coming.
right.
Because when the comic books, I mean, my, reading and learning of comic books, a lot of immorality in the
Yeah.
comic books. I saw it coming, so it's kind
Well,
of
the
not really.
authority code changed everything.
I thought the authority code was a good thing in my
Yeah,
opinion. Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Right.
but
Well, I mean, it was self-regulation, instead of
yeah,
Congress having to step in.
right, right.
Yeah,
Right, but it was the thing is that I actually liked it. If I'm gonna read a comic book, I honestly don't feel like getting exposed to all that crap. And I want a hero and I want a good stuff, and that's sounds good to
but
me.
don't
So
you choose that? I mean, like you said, it's I may disagree with you vehemently, but I will die for your right to say it.
yeah,
Again, when you're on the newsstand, you're looking and you're going, "Oh, too violent, too
Mm.
sexual." I mean, you're making the choice right then and there what you wish to
right,
read, right?
A choice of
right.
escapism.
But what they're
Yeah.
doing, of course, is they're getting these leftist people getting into the re-engineering. They get into
Hmm.
they're taking your comic, they're taking your Superman, they're making and they're putting their left wing politics and the socialism in there,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. And they got rid of Truth, Justice, the American Way as a slogan. For goodness sakes,
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, what a slap in the
the
face! I mean, Superman was a basically a love letter from the Jewish people to America, because they came to
Yeah.
America and they found individual rights here, which were very much more they protected themselves in that way. That's a great thing, and they and to have them reject America is have Superman do that. I think it was talk about spinning the grave. These guys probably are just going nuts, just thinking about the what they created Superman to be. And
right. Yeah, it's going against type, of what he was for decades and decades. I
right, he
know.
was he was he was an ideal, and it was an
Yeah.
American ideal. And I mean, I
Well,
think like the Christopher Reeve and the first Superman movie, that was pretty good. But then you notice he started to go towards, oh, we got to fight the nukes and all this stuff, and politics
Yeah.
entered the situation, and it's like,
I mean, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, or It's a Wonderful Life. Movies like that were uniquely Americana, and they were fashioned by a director that was an immigrant. But he
Yeah.
appreciated America and
yeah,
America's values, America's wholesomeness, and
Mhm.
he appreciated. And I do see that if Americans are, I mean, immigrants are really appreciative of what America is, and now it's like, I'm sure they're still out there, but you know, if you really appreciate America, then appreciate it enough to come in legally. Of
yeah,
course,
yeah,
that's all out the
Yes.
window now.
yeah. Because the thing is, they're voting for the very governments that they left behind, and the
That's a big
tyranny,
mistake.
and it's
And
like,
Michael Taylor says, yeah, two Jewish kids from the Bronx created Superman.
yep,
Yeah. Well, they did live in Ohio at
I
the
thought they
time.
were in Cincinnati. Yeah,
Yeah, I think they were in Ohio. Yeah. But yeah,
yeah.
he has the right idea. There were two Jewish kids,
Hmm.
Jerry Siegel and Joe Schuster. Joe Schuster's almost blind
yep.
uh,
Yeah. Well,
over the
Stan Lee. I
years.
mean, the whole there's it's a big industry of
Yeah,
started by
Yeah.
Jewish people.
Jack
Jack Kirby.
Kirby. Jack
Kirby.
Kirby.
They
Yeah.
created
So
Black Panther. Two Jewish guys created Black Panther. There you
that's
go.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's America.
and that's
It's not.
America.
It's the freedom and individual rights. That's the key part of that stuff. That's why
Mhm.
these guys were able to flourish and be successful, and they weren't discriminated against because they were, they could go to the bank, get a loan, make a business, and distribute
Yeah.
comics, and nobody stopped them.
I see the private companies being weaponized against people.
It's awful.
They're going the private
Yeah,
sector because they can't get legislation through.
right.
Yeah.
They're bypassing
Yeah,
Congress, and that's
the companies today have no backbone at all. That's one thing I've
no background
realized.
at all. No.
They just, I mean, even Marvel and DC just, I mean, someone comes in and says, "Hey,
Yeah.
you don't have enough, furries in your crew."
And
Yeah,
Dan, they just like DC Comics. They just celebrated a few years ago 85 years. That's such a
mhm,
legacy.
I
And when
know.
they should be killing it, it's like Marvel. When
oh,
Marvel was hot in the
yeah,
movies, you would go for the Tony Stark Iron Man to your comic shop and get Iron Maiden. or Ironheart, whatever her name was. You go
Yeah,
for the
Ironheart.
male Thor, and you'd have the female Thor.
Yeah.
So it was nothing like the movies.
Yeah.
They cut this
Well,
on
it's all,
throat.
hey, it's, I say it's political because, you're surprised. I mean they're tearing down statues everywhere. This
Yeah,
is
Yeah.
this is what they did. This is what the socialists did in Russia and China and in Germany. They tear down everything. They try to destroy all the religions. They try to destroy all the culture, and replace it with this new way. And that's the way it's always been. That's their playbook. So
yeah,
they're doing that. They're just doing it now with comics, and these people, that the comic companies have no backbone to resist it, which is a shame.
yeah.
But that's, I say it's actually good news though, because it's good news for us, because
Yeah.
this is going to be the era of the creator, because now you can create your own comics and with no oversight, except for Indiegogo. It seems like it's
Yeah.
trying to do, but they're
Yeah.
they're trying everything. Every time they try to strike us down, you get more powerful, and it's really, I think it's a great era. It's a great time to do comics if you're a young
That's a
person.
great line. I need to use that. Strike me down, I shall rise again.
Well, that's the stuff. That's
Yeah.
the
Rise of the
that's the,
Phoenix, right?
well, that, but it's also the Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I
so
know,
I
it's
know,
Darth
right.
I
Vader.
know. I was kidding. I was kidding.
Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't win, Darth. No.
But
Oh,
it's akin to Christ saying, "Strike this, temple down, and I'll rebuild it in 3 days."
Yeah.
right.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was the great thing about the original Star Wars movies. They had spirituality about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Man is a spiritual being as well as a materialistic being in the material world, and that's what often things are missing: the spiritual component of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think in writing, that's where we're missing it.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
But look at
Because
the independent.
people
You guys.
wanna
I mean,
see
you guys
that.
are. You guys sound like Christians. You're.
I am a Christian.
yeah,
My last
you-
name is Christian. It was hard for me to get away from it.
but I'm just saying, you guys, have you seen The Chosen?
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh yeah. Somebody had. I have not seen it, but
Yeah.
I've seen some clips of it.
Now, there's a good example
Somebody
of.
recommended it.
It's a
Yeah.
good example of independent filmmakers now. This is
Mhm.
now there's all these independents happening, and these guys created something really interesting. I think it's fascinating, but so yeah, I've watched it all, and it was pretty compelling. Really, really well done stuff. So, but that's what I'm saying. You see more and more of this now. You just individuals, because there's now we have the capabilities. I mean, you can set up, you can make a movie now much cheaper, because the
Yeah.
equipment. I mean, I'm shooting this on my iPhone. It looks great. It's like this is. The
Yeah.
technology
I
now is
did.
incredible.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They
What'd
are.
you shoot that on? $200,000 camera? No, my phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
this
Snapshot.
lens here, where I got the blurred background and stuff. That kind of a camera used to cost you, thousands
Yeah.
and thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah.
So it is. In some ways, the technology is amazing. In other ways, it's very dangerous.
Dan, don't you think art is like Rembrandt, kind of like lighting, all about lighting, somewhat?
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I got. I got my lighting.
Yeah. Same thing with filmmaking or anything else.
Anything like theater.
I think
theater's
you and I,
awesome.
though, and artists today, we are a product of our time. Not
Sure.
just our generation, like we're Gen X, first year Gen X people, but I hate labels. I thought we fought a war to get away from the class system and labels, and yet we still have them. What the
Yeah.
hell? But it is what it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, it was
But-
never perfect. There's always. I mean.
No, it was never perfect. If you're
Yeah.
looking for perfection, you'll have to wait for the next world.
That's right.
That's true.
That is right.
Yeah, I don't think. Hopefully, we can get the comic books back on track. Now, I think there's a lot of issues with that. Like, we need a central platform, and I hate that they're messing with it with the shadow banning and other things like that. But
Yeah.
I don't know that I don't know that we should scatter and go our own ways on our own websites or platforms. You can certainly have that, but I would like to see a central hub where we all kind of participate.
I think it's the
Kickstarter.
individualism is okay if you
Yeah.
just you connect, as like what we're doing now, connecting, spreading the word. This is grassroots stuff.
Yeah,
This
it is.
This is word
Yeah.
of mouth. So you can, these videos can get watched and spread around, and people find each other. Like I said, just as funny thing with Aaron and I, where I said, I want to color that, and he's like, go for it,
Oh yeah, man.
So that's
Good.
kind of how this stuff is starting to happen more. Is this new media is different? It's the old media, the legacy media, they're getting very concerned now because people aren't watching NBC, CBS, and all
No,
this stuff.
the
This is
shows are
not.
terrible now.
They're watching YouTube. They're
That's
watching
right.
and they're watching TikTok videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Did you meet Aaron through the conventions?
No, through this CG and YouTube stuff.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
All right.
great.
Yeah.
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 He's
So
a
I
good
mean,
guy.
I'm connected. That's why how I got with Graham Nolan, and I did the Two Fisted Manly Tales, that sort
Yeah.
of that thing,
Mhm.
and of course Ethan and Andy Smith, and
I'm
I mean
glad
the
you
whole
brought up
gang of them.
Nolan because he's a 1982 graduate of the Joe Kubert School, and so is Andy Smith,
Yep.
Patrick Parnell, several Shane Davis, all Kubert School graduates.
Yep. Yep. Well, that's the thing is now I'm connecting with these guys, and it's so the network is there's a number of these guys are trying to do their own. I mean, I think Shane Davis is going to launch or has launched his
Mhm.
own Indiegogo type platform. So, I'm sure he may decide to share that with the rest of the group and that kind of thing. And so it may what you're talking about may happen. There may be an Indiegogo of sorts. There's Robert Romano's working on something.
Mhm.
They're trying to develop these things right now, and that's why I say when they kick us off at Indiegogo, we may have somewhere else to go that are with us within this group of people, and there's a lot of talent will rise and show up, and people who are experts at this stuff can help out, and
Well, if you
so
get some of the technical stuff out of the way, I would think that the people that have actually ran campaigns and been through the trenches
yeah,
would be the best to know what they liked and disliked about, say, Indiegogo.
yeah,
We wish they had this feature. Well, you can incorporate it on your own platform
yes,
and get your wish, and make it better. I'm afraid
yes,
that they don't want to make it better. The
Yeah.
Indiegogo or the Kickstarter, they don't want to make it better.
whatever they're doing, who knows what they're doing over there? It's a mystery. No one will talk to us. No,
Yeah,
No.
no
they
one's
won't
saying anything.
talk exactly.
It's unbelievable that the treatment after they delivered millions of dollars of business to these people, but
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
somebody
But
got
I
in
mean,
there.
compared to a lot of the other crowdfunders,
Yeah.
comics are a very small percentage of that.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's the
they
problem.
are.
Even though it's millions of dollars, it's
That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yep.
I
But
think
we'll see
comics.
because things can change really quickly. These people who there's obviously some activists have gotten in there, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're doing this thing now. They can just as they got in there, they can get out of there. So
Yeah,
if
they
they can be
can.
fired. So we'll see what happens if they you know
Stockholders. Mm-hmm.
So if a
yeah.
young person said, "Dan, I want to get into comics. Do you have any advice?" What would you tell them? Don't do it, or run like hell, or
It's hard to say because it's like hey, giving someone an advice to be a musician. Like
Mhm.
you could be very successful, or you could struggle and not and bomb it. It's so
Mhm.
it's not there's not one thing. I think if you're driven and stuff, you're really talented, you've got some skill, and you really work hard, maybe you can make it. I just
Yeah.
really can't recommend
Yeah.
anything
Right.
because it's just too much.
Well, you could
There's
be
too many.
very successful,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Or you
yeah,
could be like Vincent Van Gogh, where
yeah.
he's like struggles his whole life.
Yeah. But even
Yeah.
if, like right now, if I produce just a beautiful, incredibly drawn comic and all that sort of thing, you still got to promote it. You still got to have some of that Ethan
Yeah.
in you, because it's just like, because no one knows about it. It's no good. So it's you have to do. It's just a lot of moving parts to
That's
it.
that's what I often say. You could write the best story because I found out in the last few years I'm a better writer than I am an artist. uh, and you can write the best story, and if you don't get it out, nobody reads it. It doesn't matter.
True.
Yeah.
You got to get it out in front of people
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the
so
real
that
trick,
they
isn't
can
it?
spread the word.
Yeah.
I think
Exactly.
that's why it's going to be successful because I've always thought the best advertising is word of mouth because I have relationship with you and I value your opinion. And if you say it's a good book, I'll give it a try. If you say it sucks, I
Yeah.
may
Yeah,
still
that's
give
what's
it a
great
try.
about this. Is truly merit based because if it's a crappy comic book and the people get it, they're not going to buy a second one. You have to
Right.
you have to really work hard, do the great work, and so we'll see what happens. But so far, I mean, I'm satisfied with a lot of the books I'm getting. Jane Davis's
Yeah.
book was excellent. I really loved Aaron's Wraith of God. I thought that was really well told. I didn't know he could write like that. I mean, it's really well done.
Yeah.
Of course, Cyberfrog is really good. I'm looking forward to Andy's, Smith's Cordrath. So I'm trying to think of else. Rainey's actually got a.
Oh,
I
she's
did
a
that-
talent. Yeah.
When
She's awesome,
I did that pinup for her book, she sent me the first 2 issues to read, and she's a good, solid storyteller. She's really quite good. So,
Oh, have you seen her notebook? She's got she's
Yeah.
world built in detail. She has that Asian mind that just,
she's got her own
everything-
language. She wrote her own language like Tolkien.
Ah, it's
I
amazing.
know. It's
I know.
amazing.
Wow.
So yeah, she's a real talent. So
We need to pray for her because she's got family in Thailand.
Oh no.
First couple
Yeah.
of times that I was on with her behind the scenes, I said, "Get your family out of there. I know it's their home, but I'm really,
Yeah,
I'm
she's
really worried
pretty
about
concerned about that.
I'm really concerned about Thailand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Me
what
too.
may happen.
It's supposed to happen on my birthday, March 16th. That's so reports say about China getting
Oh,
it.
really? I hadn't heard that.
Taiwan.
Well,
Yeah, I've heard ads about it, propaganda, and I don't know if it's true or not,
Yeah.
but it's suspected to be that day.
Yeah.
Woo! Oh man. On that note, how about we?
Yeah, we
Some
covered a lot of
little
ground here.
Yeah, we have. How about? Yeah,
Hey,
let's support our.
this is a one shot to be on with Dan Lawlis. Come on.
Absolutely. Let's
Yeah.
do it. Yeah,
Well,
man. So
Well, I have to
good.
come back then. Shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I tell you what, I do have a couple of comics to promote. Speaking on supporting your indie creators, I have a Apex Comics Cavalcade Ashcan and the Apex Comics Golden Age, which consists of, let me show it, 2 mini comics. The Apex Comics Golden Age. Let me get the banner off here. Yep. You get 2 of them. You get Madam X, which is 32 pages in a mini comic format. Nikolai Store, about 24 pages.
Remember mini
Two-
comics, Dan?
Remember, plus you got a print on the back, limited edition print.
Are those
Signed by yours
mini
truly.
comics? Are they ash cans? Or are they?
Yeah, they're smaller than ash cans. Here's an ash can right here. This is the Apex Comics Cavalcade ash can, 20 pages, 3
Right.
stories. I wrote, drew, ink, lettered, all by hand. So some of these I did back in the early 90s, some up to like 2006. So yeah, they're all different pages. Nice wraparound cover. $10 each or 2 for $20. If you buy 2 for $20, you get an extra print free. Postage paid, by the way. So it's all postage paid. And there's the link right here. There you go.
Well, now, what's the one, the bat one you said with the bat character?
Fembat will be
Fembat.
a crowdfunded project. Originally on Indiegogo, I'm not so sure about it. Well, oh, by the way, how about we? We'll show the trailer. Thanks.
Yeah,
for,
I remember
Show
seeing the
your
trailer.
trailer.
It was pretty cool.
yeah, thanks. Let's go and see if we can find it here. There we go. Where is it? Right there. There we go. Share. And bam. Yep. I did. I had to scrap it because I had changed banks on this crowdfunder. So
Mm.
I will plan to do another on Indiegogo to actually straighten that out and get the sign up page. So it's going to take a while to put that back on again.
Yeah,
But
I like
yeah,
the name. I like the
Fembat.
Fembat name. It's just it sounds like a name that's like established already. Like like you mentioned. Oh, you known it already. Known it for a while. It's what it feels
Yeah.
like to me.
Originally, I wanted to create a character who's a go-go dancer who gets bit by a vampire from the 1960s. I always wanted to be a 60s movie, like a femback character, not Batwoman or anything, but a risque. She doesn't have a bat symbol. She has armored, bulletproof breasts, and it has an armored suit that fights vampires and monsters. And I wrote, drew, and edited 56 complete pages. It's not colored yet, but I don't know how much you charge for coloring, but I'll DM you and see what you think.
Show my trailer, will you, while we're
let's
here?
show Devil Fire Rex's trailer.
In fulfillment right now. Got a new backer today. $1,146, 59 backers. Tortured soul comes back to Earth to save it, but can he?
Oh man, he probably did. Yeah,
Cool. It looks like you guys are having fun.
we
We're
are.
having fun. We're absolutely having
That's
fun.
really the main thing, Like I say,
Actually, the guy that did my trailer did his trailer as well.
Yeah, Pedro Ang, the great Pedro Ang.
Rex, what we were saying, being in the industry, you got to get it all done on time, all that stuff. I did start to hate comics,
Yeah.
And when I left the industry, I started to like comics again. Like it's when you really got to do something under pressure, you kind of just loses
Well,
its
it's
magic,
like if you ate at a pizza
Yeah.
place, right? Or a burger joint. You get sick of the smells and
Yeah.
the food and then once you leave the pizza place, hopefully you want to eat pizza again,
Yeah, or like riding a roller coaster. It's fun to ride a roller coaster, but if you had to ride it every day for 8 hours, you'd be like, I'm done
Yeah.
with this.
Exactly. Too
Good
much of a
job.
good thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You're killing me with overabundance, Marvel. You mentioned you worked on Cloak and Dagger early on in your career.
yeah, that was the first thing I did. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
What issue number?
Was it more joyous for you then? you think?
Strange Tales, but that was but I mean I was so young and excited to draw anything,
Yeah.
So it was pretty
It
cool.
was a dream come true, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really just I wanted to draw comics like in a bad way. So it was
Yeah.
I really, like I said, I didn't really enjoy it though until I got to Dark Horse.
Did you submit
Oh yeah.
things?
Yeah.
Is that how you got picked up?
Yeah,
by Marvel?
initially, actually, I think when I was maybe 18, I think I went to New York and actually without an appointment, walked into both DC and Marvel offices with my portfolio, and got supremely rejected. But that didn't make me quit at all. I was in art school, and I just kept going. But I was at a convention, and I showed Archie Goodwin my samples, and he said these are really good. And then he got me in contact with Carl Potts, and Carl Potts was the editor.
Oh, Carl, yeah, great
Yeah, he's a
stuff.
good editor. Yeah.
So
How much of it is talent? I think there's three essential things. Talent's great to have, but it's practice, practice, practice. Am I wrong about that?
yeah, I think you got to have some initial talent disposition, but then you have to really work on that, developing that big time. It's like say music or anything, you really have to. But I say it's like I'm really serious. If you copy the artists that you like the most, copy and master them. That's the way I always recommend anyone who's trying to learn. It's like it's like a good analogy is music. You play someone else's music first, and you learn to master the piano or something, playing something like that. Then you can create your own eventually.
There was a warning that came with that. If you copy somebody, you'll copy their mistakes.
Well, copy good. That's what I'm saying.
Copy good.
Yeah, copy the
good,
best. Copy the best
Copy
artists.
steps.
That's why I say don't copy the crummy guys. Copy the really good ones. If you're copying Dave Stevens and Bernie Wrightson, it's that sort of thing. You're going to be better.
You're in good hands.
Yeah, we were talking about Dave.
Frazetta.
I said if I could resurrect any artist, I think it would be Dave Stevens. Loved his stuff. His Rocketeer stuff, so clean a line. It's just got that cartoony feel, like you said. I just enjoyed so
Yeah.
much. But there's so many others like Michael Turner that died so young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not promised tomorrow, are we, Dan?
No, we are not.
So, if we never see you again, Dan, it's been great,
Well,
great
you will
speaking
see me
with you.
again. What the heck? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Because
awesome,
actually,
man.
that, like I said, this is the thing that I
I
love.
keep
This is the
one
this
foot
is
in the grave.
this is the kind of thing I love is talking comics. I love. I mean, I don't get a chance to do that, so
Yeah,
it's a lot of
yeah.
fun.
It's a good outlet.
It
Absolutely,
is.
yeah,
Yeah,
and also inspirational. It's like I'm like
yeah.
I want to draw comics and like talk. I talked to you guys for a while. Like I want to get to it. Like I really
Well,
kind of
you know
fired
that's
up.
that's why I like the independent stuff and always have. I Spider-Man, Batman, I kind of know what to expect. When I was first starting out, I didn't, so I enjoyed that type of stuff. But I kind of, if it's an independent project like Wraith of God, I know nothing about that till I read it,
Yeah,
Right.
or a superhero team, no matter how obscure. It didn't matter if it was nicely drawn or poorly written or whatever. It was like all new to me, and I wanted to know these
yeah,
characters. They got interesting looking characters just going by the visuals. I
yeah.
didn't
I think
mind that
that's
it wasn't a top level project.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem. Actually, Marvel and DC are having a little bit because, like Batman, I mean, if I see one more cover of him overlooking the city, I think I've seen it. That'll be
Yeah,
too soon. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's just like
Right.
it's so overdone. Yeah, that's what.
Mm,
If you ask me, would I ever want to draw Batman? The answer is no, because
mm.
great talent has already hit Batman and did a better job
yeah,
than I can do.
yeah.
Why would I want to just join the ranks? I'd
Well,
rather do like
that
you're saying, my original.
we talk about comic book logic. If you think about real life, if you go under in most places in the ocean below 100 feet, it's going to be completely black except for
Yeah.
bioluminescence. But like in comics, it's never that way. You have to see the characters, the costume colors, even underwater, even though they may be tinted blue or whatever. There's a certain comic book logic to comics, don't you think, that defies real reality?
Yeah, it's an interesting medium because you can see the characters and see what they're thinking in their heads. And
Right.
that's a
Thought
unique.
balloons.
It's
Yeah.
unique to comics where you don't get that in written prose very easily, and you certainly don't get it in film unless you have a voiceover, which is often annoying.
Hmm.
So it's a really unique medium. That's why it can't really be replaced, and I don't think it's ever going to go away because it's itself. It's
You
something in
think it'll
itself.
ever be esteemed as more artistic as it is in Europe and other places? Because they esteem comics way higher than what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it will be. Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Matter of
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
yeah. And I
Well,
think this is the pathway to it. I think the independence now, the way we're going right now, is the right way to go.
I think so
I just
too.
hope we don't copy their socialism
But
too.
but
No,
even
no.
even at that, Dan, I think I got to thinking about it. I think it'll be 5 to 8 years for some people to even notice what's going on over here. They're going to be behind the ball. We're already going to be there by the
Yeah.
time they even notice us.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the new media is YouTube and stuff like that, and this is the way
hmm
people are communicating now. So, it may be, more, I think there's more people that know about us than you think we know about us.
more advanced. Yeah, it
Yeah,
may
there's a
happen
lot
more
of people
quickly than
talking
what I
about
think.
it.
Okay.
Because everybody in the industry, is connected in some way.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about Ethan Van
Well, I mean,
Sciver.
it's a fairly small group, right?
Right,
The
right.
great thing was in the 80s, it was all about the comics when you went to a convention. Now
Yeah.
it's not about the comics or the creators
It's
anymore.
cosplay,
It's like,
film,
right. And
voiceover
there was some of
actors.
that back
Yeah,
then, but not to the degree it is now. It's
yeah,
not so much centered about finding that back issue or meeting
yeah.
that creator or watching that panel.
Yeah.
Uh,
Rex, I think what you're saying is like what we're doing. We're all aware of it, but is the general public aware of us? That getting them,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's more of the
Well, like
difficult thing.
Michael Barron, he went on Fox and his
Yeah,
$10,000 his campaign did overnight.
yeah,
That's very same day because of the distribution of exposure.
yeah,
Yeah.
That he's what he's saying's right, and I'm going to
yeah.
back that.
Yeah,
I'm not
it
a
doesn't
comic
always
book
work that
writer.
way though. Mike S. Miller
No,
learned a lesson when he
yeah,
he, he had Ben Shapiro was pushing his comic and didn't translate into sales.
yeah.
Right.
So
Just had the wrong audience.
You think it was what do you think the difference was? Personality or what?
Maybe I think it had something to do with the superhero, the way he handled the superheroes and stuff like that. Mike Barron's a more serious writer,
Yeah.
and he's it's so I think Mike S. Miller's was a little more campy,
Yeah.
and
Right.
maybe it didn't go that way. I don't know. I mean that some of the stuff I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
really,
Batman Campy, 1966.
yeah.
That might have saved Batman from being canceled.
Right.
So sometimes camp is good. Do you think the 1989 Batman movie was camp
With Michael Keaton.
with Michael Keaton, Mr. Mom? Yeah.
No, I think it was dark. Actually,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that went to that movie. I think and they're going, oh, a new Batman film, and they came out and went going, this is psychotic,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are you?
It's originally from the 40s. Oh.
Yeah, but they didn't realize all that's going on, this, in the Frank Miller stuff and the sort of
yeah.
dark nature that Batman was going to become.
Well, when Batman came out, he used to shoot people. I mean, back in
yeah, he had a gun.
if they think things are dark, go back and read some of the Golden Age stuff. They were kicking people
39.
out of windows and off buildings.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh! Did you guys see that Ethan was playing once on his show, old Captain Marvel stuff, like serials, before
Yeah.
they got
Oh,
cut.
love it.
Anyways, Captain Marvel pulls out a submachine gun and just starts blowing all these criminals away. It's like,
I didn't
Oh,
know.
my
I would
God.
just see that. Wow.
Well, the old
That was
serials,
really-
the old cliffhangers, that comes into it, doesn't it? I mean, you're, it is like a soap opera. In fact, when I first started reading comics, even though it said next issue, it never registered up here, Dan, that there would be a next issue. It was only till I, by random, picked out the next issue and said, oh, that goes with that one, that I got it.
Mhm.
That it was continuation. I kind of read them as one and done.
Yeah, and usually they were written that way, to
Yeah.
because they didn't always think you're going to come back for it, but yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one thing. We were talking about that today on my channel. I do a daily show, and we were talking about kind of like the Secret Wars or something like that, or the Death of Superman, that's so scattered throughout all of the books. You can't keep up with it. My bank account can't keep up.
No kid can. Not the average kid can't buy comics today. Not at
No.
$5 a pop.
Yeah,
Forget
that's
about it.
expensive. Yeah.
$3.99, $4.99.
Can you imagine how many comics we could have got for our 25 cents plus tax with
Yeah.
$5? I would have been in heaven.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Spinning
It's
racks.
been great finally meeting you, Dan.
Well, it's been fun. This is awesome. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It is getting a little late for me though. I'm at midnight. As I mentioned, I am on somewhat
Oh, you're
normal
Michigan.
human schedule right now. But
All
yeah.
right.
Well, at least we're all on Central Time.
No, I'm on Eastern.
Oh, you're on Eastern. Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Eastern.
Yeah, that's right.
Michael Taylor
Yeah,
says
you're
the
an
first
hour
time
ahead.
Batman killed a villain, he hung him from his plane.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
What issue that was? Oh my god!
It's
that's
past
crazy.
midnight. I'm surprised you didn't turn into a pumpkin.
No.
Well, you do have a pumpkin-like background, though. It's orange. In the
I
Yeah, my
dropped
arm's a
your-
little orange. Yeah.
Early,
pretty cool.
I dropped your YouTube channel in the chat. I'll do it again now. Dan,
Yes, please
for
subscribe
those-
to Dan Lawlis, everyone.
Yeah.
It's
I think
a
I'm
great
gonna.
channel.
I think I'm gonna do more drawing streams. That
You
seems to be
should.
kind of fun. 'Cause-
Yeah.
But here's the problem: is I can talk like when I'm interacting with people, but just by myself, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Fine.
I haven't reached that level yet. But
You
some of
get
these
your
people,
good co-host to do that, kind of like
Yeah.
Dave
That's right.
Finch while he draws, and then
Yeah.
so and so has a
And
question
then read
for
the
you.
chat for you, and yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah,
Find someone to do that.
absolutely.
Yeah, subscribe to his channel, How to Draw Comics by Dan Lawlis. Each character,
Yeah.
I previewed that on the live stream before this one on
Yeah.
Thursday. You might want to check it out. And so, yes, 40 minutes. I say, hey, man,
Yeah.
watch how he draws a Hulk or a vampire.
I really want to do that too. I really want to do more videos about how to draw comics and teach what I have this, boatload of knowledge that I've built over 36 years of being a professional artist. And I really want, I'm ready to depart that knowledge now to people and
That's
really,
right.
Teach it.
Mentor.
Because I do love teaching. I love,
Pass the baton on, because it
absolutely.
really is a sacred trust. I think.
Yeah. Well, the thing is too, I want to try to influence the next generation of artists
Yeah.
because I want the comics to be good. I want them. I want to read good comics. So I got to if I have to train them myself, I'll do it.
Yeah. And the ones you didn't
Absolutely.
read that you never got around to reading, I look at that as my retirement in the nursing home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big,
Yeah, there's you think about
Seriously.
all the comics. I mean, like I said, I have boxes of comics, but compared to what is all out there, I mean, I would love
Yeah.
just to buy the old collections and stuff and just start going through them. And
Yeah.
I
What's
love
your
reading.
holy grail before we leave, Dan? What's your
In what way?
what
What?
it well, I mean, your one comic that if you could save out of all of them. It's probably sentimental, right?
I really do love the Dark Knight, the Frank Miller's Dark Knight. I mean, I
Really?
don't, I just think it was the perfect storm. It kind of came together.
Yeah.
The kind of drama I remember reading that blew me away, like Superman, that nuclear weapons coming and
Yeah.
you see him say, 20 million die by fire if I'm weak. I mean, it was so powerfully dramatic, and I thought that is so cool.
Can that be
Wild.
duplicated today, Dan?
It's not. That's the saddest thing. Is
No.
Yeah.
I was thinking out here. Like I said, the influence. I'm in 1987. I'm seeing Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein. I'm seeing Dave Stevens' Rocketeer, and Frank Frazetta. All these. And I'm thinking, wow, this is going to be great. And then a big whimper. Nothing happened. Like there's no replay.
Yeah.
The Bernie Wrightson? Where's the duplicate of Gene Colan? Where they're just
Right.
not happening, and it's really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But
It is.
I think if it's going to be done, it's going to be us.
I
You
think
know,
so too.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you want to see something produced. Now, do you have that in you? I don't know.
Yeah.
You partner with a Mike Barron, maybe, who's been,
Yeah.
or a
Yeah.
Chuck Dixon. that's
Right.
been
Well, I
writing
tell you,
for
I've talked to those guys, so it's there could be something like that happening for sure.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
So, well, I mean, I did with Mike Barron. With the Two Fisted Manly Tales story
Yeah.
that I drew was written by Mike. So I mean,
Okay.
that was kind of one of my bucket list is things I really wanted to do something
Yeah.
because I always
I
loved
have a
Badger.
copy of that.
I was a huge
Yeah.
fan of Badger.
Yeah.
Oh
Me
yeah,
too.
that's
Me
where
too.
I
Yeah.
primarily know Mike Barron from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Badger
Badger was
stuff.
hilarious. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah,
Crazy.
very
And
different
I liked
departure.
I liked
Yeah.
I collected again. I was drawn to it by Bill Reinhold's artwork. It was really a
Oh,
solid
yeah.
artist.
Bill did Justice Machine. That was
Yes,
early
he
independent
did.
stuff.
Early '80s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a
And,
good
uh,
Yeah,
artist.
I love
Gee.
the obscure stuff, Dan.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta
You know,
love it.
if like I say, I think I would grab the dollar bin books to save in a burning fire. I don't think it would be my Spider-Man or whatever. It would be those that are not that easy to find, that they're the independents, I,
Yeah.
I respect stuff like Apex is doing and others are doing because it's like, well, they're getting it out there.
Mhm.
That, and I think making a comic is one of the hardest things for me. It's
Oh
just
my God. Yeah.
you've got drawing and inking and writing and lettering, and it's just a process. And
Yeah.
I'm finding out when it really is. Do you think it's a more of a collaborative medium?
No, I don't think it is. I think that it can be collaborative, but the two people have to be really working together. I remember. You guys ever see that video called Masters of Comic Book Art? It was hosted by Harlan Ellison, and it's a great. That's another thing that I saw just before I got into my career, and there's great interviews in there with Will Eisner, Jack Kirby, Neil Adams, Frank Miller, Dave Sim, Mobius, just a whole
Wow.
collection of these really good artists.
Mhm.
And I remember what Frank Miller's words in that. He said that he thinks it's one art, but you can get exciting things happen when people collaborate. But they must come together as one art. You know what I'm saying? So he thinks that the best artists, the best comics, generally speaking, are one person who draws and writes and draws, like Will Eisner. So
Yeah.
because it's so unified in its vision and its storytelling, it's seamless.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
Will Eisner with the spirit, all his
Yeah.
layouts and stuff,
Yeah.
way ahead of
Yep.
leagues
So
ahead of.
cinematic.
I
Too.
mean, it holds up today,
Yeah,
80
Yeah,
years
that-
later.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the as far as storytelling, it's one of the things I would point to for young artists is go take a look at some of that spirit stuff because it was really clearly, clear, crystal clear storytelling,
Mhm.
effortless to read. I think that's really important. So
Yeah, I do too. If you, it's kind of like in movies when you see a period piece. There's an old Rock Hudson movie, and he's back in Civil War times, right? Well, and I'm not even sure this was on disc. It might have been on VHS, but you see some movement in the background. So I back it up. What was that movement? It was a truck and a car going by. You would,
Yeah.
it took me right out of the movie. Or a period piece, and you see that they have a vaccination mark on their arm, and it's like, why did they catch that?
All right.
Takes you right out of the movie. Yeah.
yeah, I think Lord of the Rings had some problems there where they were shooting in New Zealand
Yeah.
and there there's a tractor going over in the background like oh no.
There's way too much walking in that movie. They should have just hitched onto the tractor and just went further with it. I
They
mean,
could have
that's my
What you
opinion.
got there, Apex? I know you're dying
Well,
to show
yeah,
something.
inside one of my mini comics is a 32-page Madam X. I wrote it and drew it myself. This is a nice wraparound cover, and of course, you will never see this on it. It has, oh no, it's a guy with a brown shirt on. Oh no, who is he?
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, and she's assigned to assassinate Adolf Hitler. She's a woman of 1,000 faces, super spy of the British OSS Madam X. There you go,
yeah.
32 pages, and
Oh,
there's
good
some
times. Yeah.
action, good, good,
Isn't that
clean
funny? You
action.
can't even show Hitler anymore. Apparently,
I know.
it's weird.
I can.
Well, when
Terrible.
we were
Yeah,
kids, we would play with we had the army men. I had the American
yeah,
soldiers and I had the German soldiers and we built tanks and everything and
yeah. It's
it was
great.
like
Yeah.
I
it was
just
like
got
but
off
that it wasn't
YouTube.
like hey I like this. It's more like that's the bad guys.
I
Yeah.
just got off YouTube detention for a week, Dan, with my channel because I was talking about the election,
Hey,
and who
Brad.
I really thought won. Apparently, you can't have an opinion about that anymore.
That's the stuff that scares me. It's like
Yeah,
It
I
freedom of
is
don't.
speech
scary.
doesn't
We used to have
Hmm.
exist.
used to have a strong tradition of freedom of speech.
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
It's frightening to me that is changing. That is
yeah.
really
Mm.
not good at all. It's a very disturbing a development. That's for darn sure.
Well,
Yeah.
they want you to just uh, 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 believe in the premise, and it's like I reject your premise and the way you're phrasing it from the very get go. I'm not going to
Absolutely.
go down that rabbit hole with you.
Yeah, I will decide what I think is true or not.
Yes.
It's
Thank
funny.
you.
I
That's right.
mentioned this private face group that was in, and I was shocked to see something in a private group get censored. Like before the election, this is years back.
Yeah.
As a post that I put up, and it had the image of the Kent State, the famous one with the lady with her arms out, and it said,
Hmm.
the government wants you to remember of every school shooting except for this one. And it's a very powerful meme, it's a very powerful statement. It got censored, like in the private group. Like I couldn't believe it. Holy
Wow.
smokes.
Wow.
This wasn't even shared amongst people. This is a private Facebook group. And
Yeah.
that's
Right.
that's when I first saw it, like, my goodness,
I,
this is really, really
you
Yeah,
terrible.
know,
Brad.
when it was like Hitler, I've told people this. I would rather see the enemy marching down Main Street. At least I would know where they're at, and
Yeah.
I knew would know who to fight. But this death by 1,000 cuts, this
Mhm.
backstabbing, this you can't say this, you don't know who the enemy is. It's this corporation. It's this arm of the government or something. I hate it, Dan. Where it's just death by 1,000 cuts. You don't have a clear cut. It's not just the. It's like Hydra. It's got
Yeah.
tentacles
Yeah.
everywhere.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's so
Well,
Well,
invasive.
that's what happens in these communist countries. Everyone's afraid of saying anything,
Yeah,
and the children report on the parents, and the
and
parents are afraid to talk to their own kids.
exactly. And what gets me mad is, it takes them going after their children, which I totally understand that, right? But is that what really makes you mad? Afghanistan didn't make you mad. The border doesn't make him not keeping his oath of office doesn't make you mad. The thing going on, the trillions spent, don't make you mad. I don't.
no.
I mean, I don't think that you should stay mad, but I'm saying that doesn't upset you like going after your children. It should. It
Yes.
should. When you
Yeah.
see people clinging to a running airplane and falling off to their death, trying to get out of that country because they know how bad it's going to be. I mean, and you, eh, it's nothing but
Right.
a thing.
Yeah,
I,
Yeah.
it's a shame.
we're seeing things that I never thought we'd see, Dan.
Yeah.
It totally
It's
blows me away, really.
Yep.
mind
Yep.
The
boggling.
thing has progressed, but we've been asleep way too long. The we
Yeah.
didn't have the watchers on the wall looking out for this stuff because they've been a long time, and it's. I'm afraid
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
never see the horizon line. You know,
Yeah.
you're in a deep ditch when the horizon line is the edge of the ditch.
Yeah. I'll tell you what
You know,
though, things are kind of changing though because like
I hope
I've
so.
never been political or anything like
Right.
that.
Right.
And like some of my longtime buddies and stuff, all of a sudden we're texting stuff back and forth. We're
Yeah.
sending, like all of a sudden we're talking. We're about stuff, because it's like, hey, do you see what I'm seeing? Yeah, I'm seeing what you're seeing,
Yeah.
and so there's a lot of murmur going on here because there's a people like us who are going, hang on a second, we're going to lose it because you lose your freedom, you don't get them back.
Exactly.
No, you
They don't
don't.
come
Wake
back.
up. Use some
Yeah,
discernment. Use some
yeah,
what we called common sense back in the day, and
yeah.
Yeah.
it seems like they threw the baby out with the bathwater. Some
It
of these
sure does
people.
seem like that. That's for sure.
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
Yeah.
So,
That is
but
so
that's what I
true.
say. Like, I'm waking up. We got to wake up and start to pay attention to stuff. Some of these people are just they're a lot of bark, no bite. It
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
Yeah. I
and
really think that if 1,000 well-known celebrities, politicians, whoever, would stick up and say we're not going that direction, I think
yes,
that, and that we had some pushback, I think we would see that it's really a weak
paper
pop.
tiger. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
paper
But it
tiger.
will not be a paper tiger if we don't stand
Yeah.
up. Though I tell you
If you,
that.
I
Right.
like to say, if you give the devil an inch, he'll make a
Yeah,
stronghold out of it.
yeah.
You can't give way to certain things like this.
No.
All this child abuse and pedophilia and stuff. This is blowing my mind.
It's
You know,
disgusting.
I mean,
Taking your
stuff that
kids
would
to a
have been
drag queen show.
10 years
Yeah,
ago.
drag
I think
queens.
we would have all agreed that's bad, but now it's
Right.
just like accept it.
Yeah,
No, thanks.
Yeah,
it's n-
it's a different America,
it's
unfortunately.
That's why
it's clown
parents
world.
are
It's clown
taking a
world.
kid. It is clown world.
It's
It's a
clown
big
world.
circus.
Yeah,
You just it's you can't satirize these people. If you make a joke
yeah,
about something, they'll be doing it next week.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And satire is lost on these people anyway, or comedy. They have no sense of humor whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Intelligence has gone
Yeah. All
downhill.
the comedians are scared of it. The one was
I know.
what's
Yeah.
what's the one guy he called him the alphabet that black guy, I forget his name,
Dave Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle stood
Yeah,
up
it's
for that
great.
stuff.
And
You can
that
you
Yeah.
can see him though. You can see him. There's another comedian I saw just recently, an
Asian
Italian
guy.
guy, like Montesano or something like that.
There's an
And
Asian guy. Yeah.
he came. No, he's Italian guy. He came close to talking about the vaccine and stuff, and he was kind of like he's tipping his toe. These guys are starting to get a little pissed.
Uh-huh.
They are. I think
So
the comics are going out there like Chappelle. They will eventually.
I
yeah,
look at the old Dean Martin roast and things like that. You
Oh
never
yeah.
get that on TV now.
No.
Yeah,
Man.
everybody had a sense of humor. They had
yeah,
they had
Good old
jokes
days.
about Jewish and black,
yeah.
and it didn't matter,
Yeah.
and everybody was having
Well,
fun.
They were
I had
laughing at each other.
the unfortunate or fortunate experience of getting some free tickets to Andrew Dice Clay once.
Oh wow,
And I like holy smokes! Like I never had seen anything like this before. Like this guy. I mean, he was so politically incorrect, but also I mean he was also I thought he was crude and lewd and beyond my moral taste,
Right.
yeah,
but his freedom, I tell you, was complete. He was
yeah, it was
he
off the
was,
chain. Yeah,
he was off the wall.
yeah.
So that's the way comedy used to be. Comedy clubs used to be,
Oh yeah, I
just
mean,
boom.
Red
Oh man.
Fox, your ears would burn, and this was back in the '60s, or
Hmm.
not just Red Fox, but Richard Pryor and Bill Cosby. But
George Carlin.
when
Yeah.
George Carlin, yeah.
when they were in the comedy clubs, they would use profanity and stuff that they would never on TV or
Yeah.
that you couldn't use.
Right.
Um, so there was a big movement in the comedy clubs, even back in the '60s.
Yeah.
with black entertainment for the very
Yeah.
first time
Yeah. Well,
coming
wasn't
out.
Seinfeld was saying he wouldn't even go now to a college. It's the stuff that was mild that Seinfeld was doing
Yeah,
back, is
Oh
now
yeah.
they can't even they don't do something like even The Office that show got there was a show called Diversity Day. It's
yep.
got canceled. It was funny and it was and actually the show was clearly made of an ass out of people who were
Well,
just
I haven't
being
watched it, but they did something with Muhammad on South Park years ago,
yeah.
and I mean they would never do that today. I don't
Oh, they
think.
can't. Well, actually, they couldn't even then either. Those guys got
Yeah, they
threatened.
pushed the envelope, didn't they?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't. That's another thing that's terrifying is this
Hey, Murphy. Yeah.
the Islam stuff coming.
Well, is it breaking away from the status quo, or what we're trying to do? Is that going to be not status quo? Is Marvel and DC still the status quo in comics? You
Not to
think?
me.
I think they're done. I think it's over.
Yeah,
I think that you just unless it would take an Ethan or something to go in and Chuck Dixon if they hired him to clean
Yeah.
house and
yeah,
start doing good writing
Yeah.
again. Then they could revive it completely, but that's not going to happen. The companies are too scared. They're just a bunch of
Yeah.
scaredy cats. They won't. They're terrified of
yeah.
this stuff. And I think, but there's a real possibility. People are just getting sick of it. I'm
Yeah.
sick of it.
Yeah. Well, I
And
remember when they were trying to launch a Milestone again, and I had 5 of the number 1 issues there. I was going to give it a try, and I was looking in it just to make sure. And the first thing I happened up to was a double-page spread of Black Lives Matter. I closed it up, put them back.
No.
I didn't
No.
want to. I don't want to watch that on the news today, much less 20 years
yeah.
from now in my collection.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
It's okay to
You
speak
can't,
about
you
such.
can't preach to people. Even if it's something I agreed with, I really don't feel like seeing it so much. You know what I mean? It's kind of like I just want to have cool. I can turn on the news anytime to see this stuff. I want to read a comic book. I want adventure.
Yeah,
Escape.
escapism,
Yep.
maybe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what used to be fun. Like read a Robert E. Howard
Well,
story.
well, you
Robert E.
said
That's
a
what
Howard
we're
story.
word.
doing
You
here
said a
right
word that's most important to me is inspiration. Seeing something or experiencing. I remember the first time I read the term doppelganger, and that was in Aztec Ace out of Eclipse Comics.
now.
I think Munch wrote that, or whatever. Doug
Oh,
Munch, what?
Doug Mitch. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he wrote that. And doppelganger, what is this word? So you go look it up, or whatever. And, it expanded my vocabulary
Yeah.
and just the concept of my world. You could go anywhere, to another planet, under the
Yeah.
ocean. I mean, it was the best. And it really is a unique, kind of like jazz. It's a unique art form for America, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah, you
should
would
be.
you would like this go find that Masters of Comic Book Art video
Okay.
with interviewing Neil Adams says that very thing about looking up words and stuff like that kids will do. It's really it's really a neat one. So
Well, Dan,
that's
thanks
all
for
good.
coming on. I know
Thanks for
Apex
coming.
is
Big
thrilled.
time.
I sure am.
I am. It's a great
Yeah,
talk.
this is great. I didn't even know what to expect.
It's fun.
I just Brett asked me out. I'm like, sure, go on. What the heck, and
Take a
and
chance.
it turned out to be a whole lot of fun, you guys. So I really enjoyed
Good.
it.
I hope to
Yeah.
see you over on Jimmy's channel here pretty soon if
Yeah.
y'all set that
Yeah,
up.
I definitely. I mean, I'm talking to Jimmy, and I'm going to go on his channel.
I was blown away. We were on topic list, and now he's going to be hosting it this week along with
That's
the
cool.
2 guys that started it. I've been on there for about well over a year, and he just out of the blue said, "Hey Rex, I know you're a big fan of Conan. Would you like to come on with me?" And I'm like, and Dan Lawlis, and I'm like,
Hell
"Oh,
yeah.
sure."
All right, let's go. Let's do it.
And I'll get some originals from in there, and we can look at some of his preliminaries if you want to.
Absolutely,
That's
that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. I love. I like watching Comic Art Live. Do you guys ever watch that? Where the guy, the Bill Cox, and they sell the original art and stuff like that. And they're
Yeah,
always
yeah,
looking at
yeah.
original
Okay.
art. I love watching that show
Well,
because
it was really
I love art.
Ethan's draw streams that brought me into this.
Yeah.
All right.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyways, those guys sell original artwork. They're big dealers, and they're always showing the artwork, and it's so cool to see stuff and you remember stuff, and You know,
Yeah.
they're showing because the art market is pretty hot market right now for the Silver Age and Golden Age stuff. Not
Oh yeah,
as much
absolutely.
for
Yeah.
the
and
early stuff.
I
oh
mean,
yeah,
and to think that that stuff was just up to about 1982 or the early 80s, it wasn't even considered. They shredded it. They threw it
Yeah,
away. And then
oh
and Gil Kane would come in and take stacks of it.
yeah,
It's the
yeah.
story, he
Take
would.
my art
It's
away.
not even my art.
yeah,
He
Right.
had sticky fingers, from what
Thanks,
I
Michael.
hear.
yeah.
But at least it
Yeah,
was saved and preserved.
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I heard stories of Jim Steranko coming in, picking up his artwork from Marvel, and then leaving. I'm
Yeah,
like, I
Neil
don't play with
Adams come
Jim.
into a room and this guy's
Yeah,
shredding pages and he said, "You stop, I'll be right back." He went up,
yeah.
he come back, the guy was still shredding stuff. Ooh, I wouldn't have wanted to tip him off.
Oh, throw him out the
yeah,
window. Ah,
but it's
in
rare now.
Minecraft.
That's why this stuff is rare. It's like so
Yeah,
that
right,
collecting value.
right. Yeah.
Oh, it could make
All right,
I'm
sense.
a big
I'm gonna go hit the hay, guys.
All
okay,
right.
Dan.
Thanks for
Take
coming
care.
on, Dan. God bless. We'll see you next time in another
Great to meet you
stream.
guys.
You
Great
bet.
to meet you.
And meet
All
you.
right, you guys take it easy. We'll talk.
All right.
All right, bye
See
bye.
ya. Bye bye. All right. Really cool. Really
Now we
cool.
do the wrap up.
Yes, we did. We wrapped it up.
Yeah. Are
Wow.
you taking your mother to church?
Maybe.
Not this
Yeah,
week? Maybe. Okay.
maybe.
Don't
My,
dox
co-
mom.
no, I'm not doxing mom.
Don't dox mom.
Don't dox
Well,
your
that was
mom
a lot of
here, brother.
fun. That was a
That was a
little
great time.
lengthier, but
I love it though. It's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun.
And he wanted to come back. That's what
He did want to come back, and so
he
he's
had.
welcome back anytime, Dan. You're
He
welcome
had
to
fun.
come back here. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
Give
the
you a
way to
fist
have
bump on that one, bro, for setting that
it.
up, because that was a good
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I hope that the
Man.
chat enjoyed it.
Oh, so they seem to have a great show.
When you're
Thanks.
kind of
Appreciate that.
engaged like that, it's hard to switch over to the chat and say hi
It's
to people
hard.
and
It's
read their
hard.
comments.
I highlight their comments at least.
It's
It's
more
just
of an
good.
interview.
It is.
It's a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
absolutely.
And
I
you're
like
right. I did have a lot of questions.
the see. You always do. You feel them out. Says I got questions
What?
popping up
Well,
in
you
my
don't want to
brain.
come on and go,
No, you don't.
I thought you were going to come on and talk.
Yeah,
You know.
that's right. Well, so what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It was a lot of fun.
well-rounded. Well-rounded.
Thanks for hosting it. You're a great
Oh, of
host.
course. Next, I'll be hosting the next chapter of the Rex, Hex, and Apex show next
Ah.
Saturday at 11 a.m. I'm trying to get a guest, possibly a female artist. If not, if no response, I'll ask someone else. I'll ask some more females. If anybody who's
Try
who?
Courtney. We haven't had Courtney on yet.
I'll ask her if she wants to
Yeah.
come on.
I,
Yeah, it'd be
I, I don't
fun.
know. We'll think of somebody.
Yeah,
We'll get somebody.
we'll make it too.
Michael
Who knows?
Taylor says, "Great show. I had a blast." Yeah, we did too.
Oh, we did. All right. Thanks, Michael. Absolutely. I'd like to thank the marvelous chat to showing up and the people who are watching. And if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, ring bell for notifications. Also, subscribe to Devilfly Rex channel. He has a 4 o'clock shadow every day at 4 o'clock with Shadowhawk
4
co-hosting.
Central. Yes.
Or 4 Central
5 Eastern.
time. Yep, 5 Eastern. That's correct.
Mhm.
So until next time, I'll see you in another video on, of course, next week. I'll have somebody, possibly, I guess, maybe not. We'll see how it goes for the week. It's a busy week. So stand by and watch the other, support your local creators, your indie creators. They can use the support. We're not a corporation. We only support ourselves, and we do the best we can. So
keep
until next
collecting.
time, keep collecting. Ciao for now.